I got the fam, I got the keys, I get the work. I am the man, you know what I'm saying? So leave it to me, cause I get it first. Yeah, woo, I've been going all day, man. Same plan, can't change that. Till I'm riding around, whole squad sitting back, chilling in the Maybach. Yeah, only as deep as your roots go. I don't do corny like fructose. If you got the drummer, that's word to my mama. I'll cover you up like a toast. I was last in my past, now you see.
This is the story of a story of a
One valiant charge for a first ever championship looms over the southern sky to Hampton, Georgia. A beautiful day in the sim for the final chance that 4 drivers have as emerging as championship contenders. Live from Atlanta on the virtual Echo Park Speedway, the KBueno Racing Network welcomes you to coverage of the semi-final race in the inaugural Droppin the Hammah Cup Series campaign and the eliminator of the round of 8. And as always, glad that you're with us tonight on the KBueno Racing Network. We're up in the broadcast booth here from Hampton, Georgia. I am Kenneth Bueno, it has been a long road since we dropped the green flag at Daytona. Long road since we dropped the green from the virtual Charlotte Motor Speedway to kick off these playoffs. But now that we are here, it is going to be a wild journey. 8 drivers are still in contention for the title. 4 buried very deep in the cut line going into this race. And just like last week, it is a super speedway, but a very different one, the 1.5 miles here in the virtual Atlanta area. Well, as we dive in, only 2 races to go in this inaugural Droppin the Hammah Cup Series campaign. Obviously, Talladega, a big shakeup in the round of 8 standings, as Kansas was really the first opportunity and only opportunity the drivers had at extending their distance to the rest of them on points. But now that they've got Talladega out of the way, and a lot of drivers just hoping that they can just survive through this round, given all of the kind of hurdles that they've been able to find over the course of the season, particularly in this round. Atlanta is going to be another big hurdle in the battle for the championship as they try to get down to the virtual Homestead Miami with a shot at the title. Well, let's refresh you as to what happened just last week at the Talladega Super Speedway, our second and third Super Speedway races we see in these round of 8 for the playoffs. Early start between the drivers. Early leaders, Category 5 Esports, Zachary Hall and Cedric Hunter would steal the lead early. Lots of charges though at the front of this field, particularly with Steven Stempian. Him and Kip Easley would find a way to work together and move up to the front of the field. That was until trouble struck for the first time in the race. Kip Easley engine expired in the middle of stage number 1. He would catch Justin Hendry, Chris Progar, Alex Muscarella in a sizable crash as they were coming down to turn 1. Easley was the only driver in this race to be affected by an engine blowing up in the middle of the event. And then a battle for the race lead again. Cedric Hunter and Zachary Hall, boy, they were nose to tail almost all race long. They had worked very well together. Brian Johnson, the rookie driver, getting turned around by Holdcroft, exit of turn 4. And as they were on that final lap of stage 1, Cedric Hunter would come away with the stage victory. And then came this, the biggest crash of the night and the most consequential for the playoff field. Warren Kyle Keith makes a daring block to the inside, gets hooked up top, catches not only Stephen Harlow, but Steven Stempian. A hard hit to the outside wall in turn 3. And Ross Harlow in the 16 buries them pretty deep in the playoff cut line fight heading into tonight's race from Echo Park Speedway. So that was the reason for it all. They were DNF'd on the race then. Alex Muscarella would take the lead from there on out. He would try to control the rest of the tempo until lane stage 2. Caution comes out off of the second corner. Chris Progar and another driver involved there off of the second corner. And then Alex Muscarella, well, getting a piece of the carnage himself, turning Eric Stewart, trying to side draft off the final corner. And the biggest crash we would see after the main group of playoff drivers got taken out of the race would strike from there on out. Drinkin' Bros Racing would try and take the lead. They would control the rhythm for the rest of the stage 3 area of the race. Here's them coming down pit road. Lawson Peel, Brandon Banks, Craig Parks, and the several of them that are left until this caution came out late in the going, inside 5 to go. James Kunkel with a run. Eric Schaefer getting a contact off of turn 2, which led to the overtime restart. Brandon Banks and Lawson Peel worked so well together, but it was a one opportunistic move by none other than Craig Parks, the former Talladega Super Speedway winner, who will come away and do it all over again. Second career Droppin the Hammah Cup Series win, and second at the virtual Talladega Super Speedway. He has swept both races there, and he has easily become the playoff spoiler. So Craig Parks takes the win, adds another really riveting shot for any of these drivers, especially those 4 beneath the cut line in red, to make their way forward with an advancement and a checkered flag. Obviously, with all of those big crashes and the big moments that happened at Talladega, all of these drivers very much far from the 4th place driver in Cedric Hunter, who is currently the last driver pointed in to the championship round. Brandon Banks still at the top of the sheet and the totem pole via that win at the virtual Kansas Speedway. But now Stephen Harlow has to go from 25 points down, Steven Stempian from 27 points down, Ross Harlow from 47 points down, and Warren Kyle Keith, who entered Talladega 50 points down from the round of 4 cut line. He is now 59 points out. So safe to say all 4 of them either need stage victories or to win the race outright if they want to have a chance at coming away with the title, or at least giving them a shot at Homestead Miami next Sunday night. Well, let's bring in one of those drivers that is on the cusp of being eliminated tonight from Echo Park Speedway. We are joined now by Steven Stempien, as Steven, I believe, is getting his qualifying effort, so maybe we'll give him a bit more time to put in his lap together, but he is going to try and get his car at the front of the grid. But plenty of drivers trying to put in their best two over the next 2.5 minutes in qualifying, but that is where they stand as they come into tonight's event. So Echo Park Speedway, and it was formerly known as the Virtual Atlanta Motor Speedway. This track was renovated back in 2022, and ever since NASCAR made it a super speedway, it has been unpredictable surface that continues to wear year after year. Handling gets worse with these next-gen cars over time, with the brutal seasons that hit this track over in Hampton, Georgia. Still a mile and a half, 2.4 kilometers, but the banking is the biggest change from 24 degrees of banking in the corners before to 28. They have also narrowed the racing surface in the middle of the corners. They have kept it wide on the main quad oval front straightaway. And big thing that we'll note, if we end up with green flag stops, you have to pit at the entry of turn 3. No longer is it pitting off of turn 4 and trying to break in the middle of the corner. It is now having to start your momentum train from turn 3 and make your way all the way to that point. Well, hopefully, let's see if we can catch up with the driver of the 88 now. Steven, we apologize for getting you in the middle of your qualifying lap, but maybe we gave you a good boost. It is the fastest on the sheet right now, 31.579. But the biggest point of conversation is the playoff cut line. Because of that crash last week, put you in a big hole going into this race. What is it going to take outright to come away with the win and advance to Homestead, Miami?
Well, Kenneth, I appreciate the good luck there because that helped. Maybe it helped loosen the nerves a little bit. But, yeah, I don't know. It's been an unfortunate season. It's just been riddled with bad luck. So maybe we can get some luck and, do what we need to do tonight. I mean, I know there's going to be some strong guys, Ross, Steven. They're going to be super aggressive, obviously. Ross must win. We're all in a must-win situation, so it's like no help from your teammates tonight. So that's going to be a little tough, but hopefully we just stay out of trouble and get it done tonight, and we move on. But to say I'm surprised or not surprised by the way this round has gone, I'm not at all. The way my season's gone, it's been that type of year. But see what we can do.
Well, hopefully things turn around tonight from the Echo Park Speedway. This round of 8, I think when it was conceived in the schedule, it was known to be unpredictable. No, you're kind of part of that, trying to go for the championship, but hopefully it all goes well. Thanks for the time, and best of luck as you guys take the green.
I appreciate it, buddy. Enjoy the show, guys.
So Steven Stempien, the driver, on the cusp of being eliminated tonight from the virtual Echo Park Speedway, among several of the other drivers that are going to take the green flag tonight behind him. So drivers are lined up now behind the iRacing official pace car. Let's take you trackside and bring you tonight's starting lineup for the semi-final race in the inaugural season of the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series from Echo Park Speedway. We're on the pole. It is Steven Stempien, 31.579. The Massachusetts native will try and capture his second win of the season and first at a super speedway, but should be most crucial to get him into the finale at Homestead next Sunday. Ross Harlow in the same boat, but more points behind in this round of 8 cut line. He's going to be rolling off on the outside of row number 1. Back in row 2 is where you'll find the North Carolinian Zachary Hall in P3. He is points above the cut line right now. Hopefully going to try and keep that steady with Stephen Harlow points below the cut line. He is that first driver looking in from the outside. He'll be on the outside of the second row as we take the green tonight. Then a pair of non-playoff drivers, Alex Muscarella, who had a phenomenal Stage 2 victory at Talladega Superspeedway last Sunday. Pretty fast race car and pretty relentless as well. He'll roll off from 5th. Steven Maggio, the standout rookie driver who has 3 wins this season, looking for his first at a Superspeedway. He'll be on the outside in position number 6. Back in row 4 is Drinking Bros Racing's Kip Easley. His number 8 car rolls off in 7th, and Richard Swavely joins back in the 32 car from position number 8. And to round out the top 10, James Kunkel and his number 42 Toyota Camry for D-Legacy Motor Club alongside the rookie Jeff Gilmore in his number 57. Back in row 6 is where you'll find league co-owner Chris Progar, the Wisconsin driver in 11th, Cedric Hunter in the 45 machine, who is 25 points above the cut line into the championship for now, but still, many things can change. He'll be in P12. Sean Kalis rolling from 13th. Daniel Holdcroft in the 31 car, going to be on the outside in 14th place before you find Craig Parks, the two-time Super Speedway winner, most recent winner at Talladega last Sunday. Going to try and get a trifecta this season with Justin Erb for TOW Racing on the outside in 16th place. Then 17th and 18th go to playoff drivers in two very different scenarios. Lawson Peel rolling off 17th in a round of 8 in which he is 49 points above the cut line. Warren Kyle Keith 59 points below the cut, all the way at the bottom. Gonna need a must win in order to get to the championship round. Casey Knight and Kevin Roy gonna be 19th and 20th, and they will bring out the final two in tonight's field. .200 laps from Virtual Echo Park Speedway. A renovated track still with a lot of fire and a chance that it could offer 4 drivers to point or win their way into the championship round. 4 drivers advance, 4 drivers go home. Steven Stepien and Stephen Harlow bring the field to the green flag. We are semi-final racing from Echo Park. And through our quick first lap, Stephen Harlow pulled out to a decent advantage up front. Steven Stepien with more help down the inside. He'll snag the lead. Zachary Hall right behind him. Alex Muscarella, the fellow DTH teammate, running in third. That's silver and black. Lowe's Cobalt Chevrolet on the inside, and they're pulled away by at least 3 to 4 car lengths back to turn 3. And although Harlow had that momentum early, it's disorganized on the very top lane on the 28 degrees of banking here at Atlanta Motor Speedway, now known as the Echo Park Speedway in 2025. Stepien leads lap 1 back to turn 1. And so far, very clean among those on the inside, but I believe perhaps the mindset is stay out of trouble. Talladega Super Speedway last Sunday proved that trouble could come out from any point in the field, whether it be in the mid portion of the area, then the back end of the field, and then at the very front with that huge crash. Warren Kyle Keith, of course, taking out Steven Stepien, Stephen Harlow, and Ross Harlow in one fell swoop in the middle of the corner as they were coming down to the final portion of stage number 2. So that's what puts them in this situation going into this race, and it is going to be much tougher for them to try and capture themselves into a good spot. But so far, so good. The outside going to find a bit more of that momentum as they come off of turn 4. Stephen Harlow with a push from Richard Swavely. He'll grab second once again back to turn 1. Stepien, though, in control for right now. There's a look at those playoff standings on the bottom left corner of your screen. Brandon Banks sitting pretty. A driver that's not really in this race tonight, but understands the situation at hand, that he is locked into the Homestead Miami finale no matter what after taking the dub at the mile and a half at the virtual Kansas Speedway just several weeks ago. But look at the distances from first or second down to fourth, and then everybody 5th on through 8th in that final category. Those drivers on the outside looking in for the round of 8. It is big time. We haven't seen gaps this big all playoffs long. At least there would be 1 or 2 drivers within single-digit margins, but because the crashes had caught those 4 drivers out of whack, it puts them very well below. So Stepien, Harlow, and the other Harlow and Ross, and of course Warren Kyle Keith, they either need stage wins tonight or they need to come away with the checkered flag no matter what. So it's a dire circumstance for a lot of the playoff competitors, hence why there's a lot of aggression early, especially with Stephen Harlow trying to hope that he can find somebody to help him on the outside. It's so far the rookie, Steven Maggio, who was cutting through the field 3 wide, and now he is the only other driver apart from Richard Swavely, mainly helping Harlow at the front. Our Charlie Byer Photography onboard camera with Harlow. And now finally getting that momentum. It has taken a little while for car number 11 to put himself at the front off of turn 2. May have a shot at the race lead. This time, Stephen Harlow with a chance to lead some laps from Echo Park Speedway, but can't do it. Car wiggles loose in 3. Stepien retakes the lead off 4. And talking to some of the drivers in the lead up to this race, particularly Steven Manjo, he told us that one of the hardest things to overcome here at Echo Park Speedway on behalf of the new next-gen car update, along with the aerodynamic changes on the sim, is side draft. It was very much changed as Harlow is loose, wiggling in 3 and 4, captures the race car before it all becomes sour. But Harlow had a moment in 3. Steven Manjo will take over the control on the outside lane, and that was nearly disaster for the driver from Vermont. One of the characteristics here at Atlanta, a track surface that continues to wear, and one of those super speedways that, because it is a 1.5 miles in configuration, it wears down the tires more than the larger super speedways do. You put a lot more load, particularly on the right rear and the right front tire. So you'll see a lot more of the drivers searching for grip as they come around in the draft and pointing all over the racetrack, just aiming to keep their car straight. Harlow escapes the madness. He'll be sitting behind Kip easily. Car on the outside, that 3-Cheese Chevrolet. And Steven Manjo has done a nice job of being aggressive. He's moving up to the front. Nothing to lose for the Brandt car. And the Cairo, New York native will try and push forward on Alex Muscarella, taking 3rd off the final corner. Back to the point, though, I made about Steven Manjo talking to us about the conditions of this Atlanta Motor Speedway and the overall method of super speedway racing with this car after the update is the eliminated side draft. You have to be very wary of that, and you can't exactly pull a car alongside you to even out as much as you could before. They have lessened the overall effects of that side draft, so it's not entirely eliminated, but it's not entirely effectful either. So you got to make sure, or effective, so you got to make sure that you use it to your advantage and, of course, have enough help. And it looks like Manjo has been the most confident at pushing himself to the front of the field. He'll snag 2nd away from the North Carolinian, that Category 5 Esports number 23 of Zachary Hall. Manjo going to try to become the first proper lead change tonight at the start-finish line. Maggio hanging tight with Stepien. He'll even with him off of turn 4. Can he beat him to the stripe? It's going to be yes. First proper lead change on lap number 14. Steven Maggio capturing the top spot for a split second. And the help comes right back in the form of Kip Easley as Maggio gets loose. He'll keep the race car straight. In comes the help. Down the back straightaway, Maggio to the race lead. And Kip Easley eliminated from last week's race at Talladega because of the engine issues. Remember, he had sat behind Steven Stepien for a good majority of the race. But after a little while, car got a little too hot on lap number 13. And Kip Easley had expired the motor. And then in came Chris Progar and Alex Muscarella. They had been involved in the first caution thrown in that race in stage number 1. So Easley, who has had a phenomenal super speedway tenure up until that Talladega race just 7 nights ago, was going to try and recoup and capture what would be his first win of his Droppin the Hammah Cup Series career. He's already captured a couple stage wins already. His last coming at Daytona and the World Center of Racing back in the regular season finale. So for Kip Easley, I think he's going to be a little more cautious about how much air he's getting on the front end of his Chevrolet. He'll hang tight though with Maggio, given the push off of turn 2, and the fight for the lead will continue back to turn 3. So at the moment, 4 cars on the outside. Maggio swivels in front of Stepien. And for the first time, it is now a very well-controlled new race leader. Steven Maggio finds his way to the front. Kip Easley will struggle to get past Stepien in P2. And now it's all going to be about playing the aero game. Maggio going up top to help. He'll block back down, entering turn 3 to get as much turn in as possible. And the rookie driver in search of race win number 4. The only other driver to win just about 3 or more races this season other than Lawson Peel. We haven't seen many repeat winners in this 2025 edition of this series. Lawson, of course, has won 9 race victories this season. Maggio with 3. The only driver with more than 1 is Craig Parks, capturing those 2 Talladega victories from earlier this season and just last Sunday. So it'll be single file down the bottom, 3 wide as Stephen Harlow tries to get underneath Kip Easley. And all of a sudden, whatever was going for that outside lane has pretty much dissolved in a matter of seconds. Perhaps a couple of drivers looking up top, but they will negate their own choices. Harlow looking to find space, Swavely getting out of the way. And car number 32 will get out of everyone's way. As a matter of fact, he'll stay down the apron. Not sure if there are problems for Swavely or if he's just letting the traffic by. But he'll reemerge off of turn 2, give up all the track position, and Swavely falls to 19th. Oh, look at how loose Chris Progar was right in front of Jeff Gilmore. That's the battle for P6 off turn 4. So the field will single out. There's Kip Easley, Jeff Gilmore near contact as they were coming off of turn 2. And Gilmore just about thought he was clear. Easley said, no way. And in comes Lawson Peel, rolled off 17th in this race. Now into the top 10. Gilmore charging high on Harlow. And again, all of that just trying to make sure that that green banner number 11 Chevrolet does not encounter any more trouble here tonight. Again, it's 25 points, so it's not entirely insurmountable for the Fairhaven, Vermont native, but it is a situation in which the last thing you want to do is pick up damage so early on in this first stage. The onboard look from Harlow as he fires off on Jeff Gilmore, plays the defense. He'll roll up high and the chance to make that second line work again. He'll pick up Gilmore this time in the battle for P6. And there's our SK Sim Racing race analysis for tonight's event from Echo Park Speedway. 50 laps each through stages 1 and 2. That's been the typical format and structure for these mile-and-a-half tracks, although it's going to feel very different at a super speedway configuration like this. But again, like the other mile-and-a-halves, we'll go 50 apiece in 1 and 2. And then in stage 3, we'll go those final 100 until the end of this race. We are near halfway home in the opening stage here from Echo Park Speedway. And it's Stephen Maggio still in control. They'll get around what is going to be the lap car of Kevin Roy, as hemorrhaged a lot of time in that first sector. So the 77 will give way on the outside. And in comes the entire field down the bottom. Really nobody trying to charge up from top other than Stephen Harlow, holding out hope that Jeff Gilmore can carry him to the promised land in clean air. But for the right now moment, Maggio, Stempien, Hall, Muscarella, and Hunter, the top 5 at lap number 24. And all the way in the back, sitting calmly, is the man in the direst situation of them all. Warren Kyle Keith, the St. Augustine, Florida native, comes into this race 59 points back of the cut line. And just like we noted last week, he was the most aggressive super speedway driver of the field, but for good reason. He was trying to go for stage wins, which he couldn't capture any, and then in the charge for the overall race victory to try and advance right to that championship 4 at Homestead Miami Speedway. Didn't pan out for him either, but it was a good finish anyway. P6 for the Florida driver in Keith, but again, he needs nothing more than a race victory, nothing less than a race victory in an event like this. But he's currently staying calm, not going to worry about stage points, going to put himself in position to try and win. And at the moment, trying to fend off Daniel Holdcroft, but they're not going to work together in the draft. So a very peculiar start for Warren Kyle Keith as here comes Steven Stempien ravaging through the outside, and this time he's got help. Alex Muscarella will follow suit. So will Chris Progar. The 3 Chevrolets working in tandem back to turn 3. And Stempien told us that in this situation he's had a struggle, especially over the last several weeks. Was pretty frustrated after Kansas in the opening race of this round of 8. Just understood that it's one of those tracks usually that does him well, but because of the new update, because of the new features and the setups, Stempien just didn't really feel comfortable driving the car. And although he was still able to come away with a solid finish, wasn't really enough to get Stempien the edge heading into that secondary race of that round of 8 at Talladega last week. And then that big crash, of course, set him back even more. So Stepien coming into this race with more urgency than we've seen him with all season. Even though at one point in the midway portion of the regular campaign, he was urgent to get a race victory. Several chances for the 88 car to visit Droppin the Hammah victory lane that didn't pan out in his favor. Finally captured the gold at the Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway, but ever since then has not been able to get the checkered flag first. He'll attempt to push forward again on Zachary Hall for second, keep him in range and try and reel back Steven Maggio. He's got the proprietary help, his teammate Alexander Muscarella, and how about the 9-time race winner right behind them, Lawson Peel, sitting third on the outside. And 5 cars now on the top groove. Chris Pogar ducks down low, going to make it 4. And Stephen Harlow, car number 11, still not really able to find his way past. As the field will come back to the start-finish line, all in control by the 97 of Steven Maggio. And just business as usual. No one on the outside really finding that edge. Maggio was really the only driver to get that sort of momentum to the race leader, but ever since has been much harder to accumulate enough draft and accumulate enough of that organization to gather momentum down the straightaways. And now Lawson Peel will fend for himself. He'll go down low to join his teammate easily. And only 3 cars remain on the top groove, so it is becoming increasingly difficult for Stepien to weave his way forward, and those guys on the bottom just too strong. As now Peel will come up top, this time in front of the Droppin the Hammah Chevrolet. The Auto Care Napa Chevrolet is going to take it for his own hand. And the 9-time winner from Columbus, Mississippi will charge to a race-high 4th, trying to take 3rd away from Cedric Hunter back to turn 1. Our Charlie Byer Photography onboard camera with Peel. Oh, and Peel's in the wall. Got tapped in the middle of the corner. I believe it might have been by Steven Stepien as they were entering turn 3. Damage to the 9 car. And we escape drama with 18 to go in the opening stage. But Peel gets put in the wall. He'll drop all the way down to 13th. And what happened there with the 9 car? I believe either a loose race car or just a faulty tap from Stepien. Looked like the car might have been unsettled. Yep, just lost it in the middle of turn 3, right in front of the 88 car. And thankfully, enough space for a majority of the field to get by. But a huge scare for Stepien as he encounters a car leading on the top. Nearly washed them all out. Take a look. Yeah, it was sideways from the middle of the corner on back. And that's just as far as Lawson plummets in the middle of that field. So Stepien stays afloat for now. He'll roll back single file. But again, this Atlanta Motor Speedway, the now Echo Park Speedway, much more difficult to control the race car in the middle of the corners at these high speeds when you're nearly full throttle. It's the right rear tire that goes away first, coupled with that sort of aero packing situation in which the driver on the bottom, if they catch up to the left quarter panel of the driver in front, they can pack up air on that rear spoiler, and it loses all downforce, that car in front. So we've seen it 1.5 miles and plenty other tracks where you get a bit to the inside of the driver that you're fighting with for position, and all of a sudden you put enough air on their rear spoiler, their downforce goes away, they either start to enter a slide or a full-on spin. And we've seen plenty of cautions come out because of the next-gen update as a result of that aero packing situation. And really, when you're going side-by-side, gridlocked here at Atlanta Motor Speedway, almost impossible to escape that phenomenon. As Stepien escapes drama, he'll be down to the inside. And Chris Pogar will try and resurrect whatever's left of the top groove with Alex Muscarella and Stephen Harlow, those usual suspects on the outside fighting for 8th. And then Lawson Peel in the background, that Napa car, blue and yellow, as he sits behind Stephen Harlow, remain that 4th to 5th car on the top and going to maintain the bottom. Jeff Gilmore looking up high, and Chris Pogar going to maintain where he's at as Maggio retains control of the race lead. And he watches calmly as we'll now enter the final 13 laps here in stage 1 from Hampton, Georgia. You watch those second and third cars, 23-45, both of those Category 5 esports teammates. They have been considerably strong all season long. Zachary Hall, of course, several runner-up finishes in 2025, and it appeared that after Talladega, he was just happy to come away with a good finish. Even though it wasn't a race victory and Craig Parks was able to steal the party, Zachary Hall still came up P2 in that event and talked to us, said how happy he was to get as good of a finish as he did at Talladega, knowing the stakes and knowing the unpredictability. So trying to weather the storm here from Echo Park Speedway and maintain that gap that he holds on to right now, a margin of 32 points ahead of that final driver. And that first driver looking from the outside in, Stephen Harlow back in P5 in the standings. And the same can be said for his teammate in Cedric Hunter. Great finishes, a playoff win at the Charlotte Motor Speedway catapulted him to the round of 12. And ever since, it's just been good finish after good finish for the 45. Haven't really seen him falter throughout the course of this season, but the Hello Kitty car was kept those usual colors over 2025. Still looking for his first championship, and an attempt to have it be a Category 5 esports versus Drinkin' Bros Racing Championship 4. We just know how good Lawson Peel is in his search for the title at 49 points above the cut line. And then, of course, Brandon Banks with that win at Kansas that locked him fully in with no worries heading into either Talladega or tonight's event from Echo Park Speedway. So the two Toyotas banding strong, going to try and work together for now, hopefully point their way into the finale next Sunday, and from there on out, just go all out for the title and the inaugural Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series title. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cars, just about single file. The first battle for position is just inside the top 7. That's where you find the Harlows together. First time that we are calling Ross Harlow's name all night long. The Tilva Halla Project Chevrolet has been kind of meandering around in the back and took an EOL penalty at the start of this race, perhaps to avoid a driver's meeting, and there's a car in the wall. Jeff Gilmore in trouble off of turn 4. And he just hammered the outside barrier. There's that right front damage to the Miller High Life Chevrolet. And now he'll go for the slide in turn 2. Will he save it? The answer is yes. And with 8 laps to go in stage 1, it is all going haywire for Jeff Gilmore. And here's a look at how it happened. Running third on the outside. And it's Lawson Peel tallying right behind. And it's just about the same thing that happened to Peel, just this time off the final corner. Got loose, overcorrected. Car hit that nasty kink at the quad oval portion of the racetrack. And then Gilmore just found trouble from there on out. So it really has not been easy. And in these final few laps of the opening stage tonight, it is starting to get racy at the front. Stepien using the draft from Craig Parks' Chevrolet. Try and carry on to fourth. Help from Kip Easley, and now his teammate Ross Harlow near contact. Lawson Peel getting the quarter panel back to turn 1. And now how aggressive will these guys be, knowing how many points they have to pick up? And understanding that as many points as Zachary Hall and Cedric Hunter get against them, it will be worse off as we push further forward in this race. But like we've seen in the opening stage, the outside hasn't found a way to crack through the ceiling. It's only been on behalf of Steven Maggio to get the race lead, to which he's never looked back from. 5 laps to go in stage 1. And the onboard look for Maggio. Just watching on as the two Toyota Camrys push him forward. And we've seen them implement pretty aggressive moves, particularly at the end of these stages. It's what got Cedric Hunter the stage win at Talladega Superspeedway last week, and nearly put them in a spot to capture another stage victory in the second one. But now with 4, now coming to 3 laps to go in the stage, no one can stop Steven Maggio. Lawson Peel trying to rally back the momentum on the high side, and he may have a good push off turn 4. He'll capture it from Craig Parks. That's going to be 4th back to turn 1. All trying to avoid that aero packing feature on these next-gen cars. And trying to avoid deja vu in this same line with Peel stepping nose to tail back to turn 3, in which Peel got significantly loose, had to save the car, tap the outside wall, but escaped suspension damage and full-on calamity. Peel will charge back down, fill the space in the inside, and down the bottom shelf, Lawson Peel will try and catch up to Craig Parks, but it is very difficult to make headlines at the very top of the speedway. It's been almost increasingly impossible to get enough drivers up there, and Stepien just gives up in his effort to try and go for the lead. He'll carry back in the middle of this long train of single-file cars shooting up through the banking, trying to find someone to help. But off of turn 4, Steven Maggio will see the final lap in the opening stage from Echo Park Speedway. Race control will throw the caution at the end of lap 50. And so as the field gets around Kevin Roy for what will be the second time tonight, put him a second lap down on the track. No real moves yet from the two Toyotas sitting second and third. White flag in the air for stage number 1. Steven Maggio in control, watching that rearview mirror keenly to find any charging moves from Hall or Hunter behind. But knowing the context of this round of 8 battle and knowing just how many points they sit above the cut going into this race, it appears Zachary Hall and Cedric Hunter will try and shoot for more here off of turn number 2. They'll take the tandem to the high skies. Can they beat Maggio through the corner? The 97 car will fight back, and it may be a photo finish to the stripe. Final lap in stage 1. Zachary Hall will take the stage win. And the man who became the 12th different stage winner of the season will get his 3rd of the year. That is a huge, huge point for the Newport, North Carolina driver, who again came into this race with a 32-point margin back to the round of 8 cut line, and now extra playoff bonus points in his back pocket. A big momentum swing for Hall, a great stage finish for Hunter, and a great stage finish as well for Steven Stepien. Even though he was carrying the outside groove, was able to move up to 4th. Ross Harlow picks up stage points in 7th, and Lawson Peel 49 points above the cut. He'll be 9th, leaving Warren Kyle Keith, Stephen Harlow, and seemingly the rest of the field. They will not capture stage points here after 50 laps in the books. So there's that entry into pit road that I was talking about at the jump of the show. No longer is it off the final corner. It's going to be from turn 3 onward. So Steven Maggio and Steven Stepien, those guys will lead the rest of the group onto the pit lane. And the first time that we see really anyone on pit road this evening from Echo Park Speedway. First real chance that anyone has a real opportunity to come down and get service. But we've seen with how loose the guys have been and just how much handling is a big factor here in Hampton, Georgia. You really want fresh Goodyear Eagles, and then of course the fuel to make it all the way to the end. Almost a bit surprising that Zachary Hall and Cedric Hunter didn't decide to come down a pit road and lead the field on in, presumably in that attempt to either stay out and have a different decision, or maybe they were just confused at that entry to turn 3. Quick stop by Maggio. That'll be a 14.3 second stop, and Zachary Hall will come away with the stage win. So let's see if we can talk to the driver. The number 23 comes away with the stage dub for just the 3rd time this season. Zachary Hall joins us now. Zachary, first of all, congratulations on the stage win. I'd imagine that is huge in your implications rather for the running of this championship. You come in with a pretty sizable gap to those beneath the cut line. How important are those extra playoff bonus points and the maximum points you can gain here in stage 1?
Oh yeah, that was awesome to see the points we gained there for sure, but just kind of made a big blunder right here and just was catching the pace car and just completely missed the entry of pit road. So, like, we'll see what the penalty is here. Me and Cedric are very worried, but we'll see. I mean, we kind of made our own bed now, I guess.
Well, that's for sure. You and Cedric Hunter will come out probably the back end of the field, but given the racing tonight, I know you two haven't made any big-time moves. You guys have stayed faithful to the bottom. What's it going to take now to carve through the field based on what you've been taking notes on over the course of stage 1?
It's going to take a lot because we've seen the outside is just not very good. I wanted to help Stimp there, but I knew going that early when he jumped out was just not going to be the right maneuver. And I just kind of decided to ride from there. And I told Cedric, I said, man, if there's nobody there on the outside when we come to this white flag, we'll drive past them off the back straightaway off of 2 if we just time this right. And we did. So that worked perfectly well. But we'll just have to see now how we can come back from this, of course. And we'll see what the penalty, of course, is here because being a close pit.
Well, hopefully you guys are able to rejoin the field soon and get back going in Stage 2. But until then, congratulations on the stage win. Hopefully we talk to you then.
All right, thanks, guys.
So Zachary Hall comes away with his third career stage victory here from Echo Park Speedway over the course of this 2025 year. And that will leave Steven Maggio and Steven Stepien occupying the inside and outside of the front row for stage number 2. Again, that faulty entry to pit road, they missed the entry line, which is right at the beginning of turn 3 down the back straightaway on the apron. And there's that big white line with those other lines perpendicular on the speedway. That is kind of that zone where you're going to come down to pit lane. And so because they missed it, they will serve a penalty. They will be at the back end of the field. But for Hall and for Hunter, given their circumstance here entering this race in the round of 8, a big positive sign as they come away with stage first and stage second. Well, now stage number 2 underway from Echo Park Speedway. Maggio and Stepien leading the field through turn 1. And a quick getaway from the front-running 2 as everyone third on back, trying to organize themselves. Race high 4th for Sean Kalis at SK Sim Racing number 90 car. Going to try and help with the number 42 of James Kunkel. Got turned around in those waning laps looking for the lead at Talladega Super Speedway. And an attempt to avenge himself, trying to go to victory lane at a track in which he basically did. Back in the Sunoco Cup Series, he's had many shots to win here at this very speedway. And now Warren Kyle Keith trying to get his way to P6. And they'll back out single file train. And again, based on what Zachary told us there in that interview off of stage number 1, said that it might be very difficult to go through the high side. Of course, him and Hunter understanding that no one was really up there in that final lap. They could beat Steven Maggio on raw pace based on the numbers they had. Just 2 versus 1. That's just an easy math equation, rather. But for those 2 drivers, I think they're kind of understanding how difficult it's going to be, or how difficult it has been already, to make use of a top groove. Maggio has been the only successor in making the top groove work in gaining momentum for the lead. Remember, he was able to help bring Kip easily to the front, had enough momentum to clear Stepien on the bottom and take the lead outright. And now it looks like James Kunkel may have just good enough of a run to push up on the DTH Chevrolet and challenge for position himself. He'll bring the Target Toyota with him of Warren Kyle Keith. Again, a driver that is in a must-win situation if he wants to head on to Homestead Miami Speedway next Sunday night. So all eyes on that white and red Target Toyota as he attempts to keep himself clean in this race. And despite hanging back in the beginning of stage 1 and still falling out shy of top 10 points paying positions, Warren Kyle Keith understands it's not going to be the stage wins that's going to get him through. It's going to be a checkered flag. So he needs to make sure he is there by lap 200. And so far, going to maintain pressure here with that 42 car as they'll stay up in P4, battling with Sean Kalis. So with that pit road mistake, it has put Cedric Hunter and Zachary Hall 18th and 19th on the racetrack. And given their scenario, I believe they had to come down pit road to serve a drive-through penalty. So big negative news for both Hunter and Hall. Look how far back they are. Now a lap down from the leaders, and they're setting mirror image lap times from those at the back end of that main train of cars at the front. But really, things have hemorrhaged very quickly for the pair of Category 5 Esports teammates, and potential shot for these guys, if there is no yellow flag on the speedway, to come away with more points, particularly Steven Stepien, who may be at the best shot, given his performance so far tonight, to move up, gain as many points as possible. Again, finished 4th in stage 1. So the Massachusetts native, who works at a Chevrolet dealership on his trade outside of the sim, holding on to 2nd right now behind the trailing Maggio. There's a look from Stepien, just how much pressure is on him to keep pace with this 97 car. And the way that these draft moves work here at Echo Park Speedway, very differently from how they do at Talladega and Daytona. And again, it's that sharp radius in the corners at a 1.5 mile configuration compared to 2.5 miles, 2.66 miles. The distance makes a huge difference in the way you drive these two tracks. And already with the moments we've seen from not only Lawson Field, but from Jeff Gilmore and Stephen Harlow, this track is more about handling than it really is about super speedway drafts. So when they reinvigorated this track back in 2022, they killed off the old, bumpy, abrasive 1.5 mile surface that really defined this Atlanta Motor Speedway in the years leading up to that repave and reconfiguration. And when SMI, the track owners, decided to change up this track, still formerly named Atlanta Motor Speedway at that time in 2022, they really looked for that balance between super speedway excitement and overall car handling. And one thing that the drivers in real life, drivers in iRacing, and just anyone that watches these Atlanta stock car races is that they understand just how wild the seasons down south in Hampton, Georgia are, from the cold winters to the very hot summers. They called this track Hotlanta for so many years, and they still very much call it Hotlanta, with the way that in the summer months the track temperature goes up significantly and you can really burn off the tires very quickly on a track surface. Even though it was repaved and there is way more grip than there ever used to be, it's still in a place to which you give it a couple years since 2022 and it has become much more harder to drive than it was when it first made its debut a couple years back. So that has been the main challenge to overcome for the driver base in the middle of the draft. That's why you see a lot more of that separation. They're spending more time off the gas pedal versus that time that they would usually spend more on throttle if they were at Talladega last week or at the World Center of Racing in Daytona. So it's all about single file throughout a majority of this field. First, second, third, fourth, and fifth. Maggio, Stepien, Easley, Kalis, and Craig Parks. 3 drivers not in the running. 4 drivers actually not in the running for the title. The next playoff driver behind Steven Stepien is the Project Hopner Chevrolet of Stephen Harlow. So despite the wiggles early on in this race and despite several failed attempts to move up to the front from that secondary lane, Harlow is going to make sure that he stays down to the red and white line at the bottom of the track this time and maintain that momentum. And those 2 playoff drivers that sit in the top 6 in this race, again, both of them sitting below that sacred cut line. And then Lawson Peel running 7th, fellow playoff driver, 49 points above the cut, and should be safe as long as he stays in this race for now. And there is not a new winner with disastrous consequences, but even then should still have a solid safety net. And then you got to walk all the way back to Ross Harlow, a driver who hasn't really had a standout performance tonight, has been rather quiet since the drop of the green flag after starting on the outside of the front row. And you'd think that with Harlow getting that good qualifying spot, things would be okay, but had that end-of-line penalty to take the green flag, so under pacing, you saw him give up spots from the outside of the banking and had to start single file on the very back end of the long line of cars. And so it really had put him in a poor position, a pickle, if you will. And he's been having to slowly work his way up to the field. Slight shimmers of brilliance, but nothing really there yet for car number 16 as he hangs tight in 12th place on 20 cars that are still in this race. All 20 that have registered have still remained on the racetrack. Now 17, though, on the lead lap. Shedrick Hunter, of course, Zachary Hall, those 2 a lap down. Sitting on the front straightaway now, and Kevin Roy in car number 77. He is 2 laps behind the leaders. There's that difference as they'll cross the line for what's going to be 30 laps to go in the second stage from Echo Park Speedway. And if you're Zachary Hall and Cedric Hunter, of course, you picked up the great points from stage 1, but you really don't want those guys beneath the cut line to start mounting their comeback. Any slight gain in momentum could be a mentality change entering stage 3. So Hunter and Hall are going to hope for a pair of yellows to put them back on the lead lap. Again, that wave around effect is in play going into these races, and if you're going to be that first car a lap down, you're going to be that lucky dog candidate spot if a yellow flag does fly. So Hunter, proverbially, if a yellow does fly, will end up as a car on the lead lap first. Zachary Hall would have to hope for a secondary yellow to put himself back in that front running group. So as those at the front remain single file, this is our first bit of side-by-side action, and this is just on the edge of the top 10. Ross Harlow perhaps saying to the rest of the field, okay, now I got to start going. Let me pick up some help. So he'll pick up Chris Progar, James Kunkel, and Warren Kyle Keith. Those two Toyotas at the back end of this group of cars, and that was trying to make things work in the top 5 at the beginning end of this second stage in the early laps, but just sort of fell through the momentum and just could not find their way back through. Warren Kyle Keith darts back to the bottom and through the top running shelf. Look at the momentum by Ross Harlow. Charges up to Justin Erb. Sean Kalis moves out of the way. He was looped off the final corner, and they were just about 3 wide coming back to turn 1. And did something happen to Sean Kalis? He was running well inside the top group. There he is, that blue, black, and yellow, or blue, black, and orange, rather. SK Sim Racing Chevrolet, yep, just loose in the middle of turn 3. And a wonderful save by Kalis, stayed out of trouble. Those apron transitions can be deadly. But for Kalis, he hangs on to the car. He will lose a ton of time as a result, though. But his car will be clean, and now it's only 4 cars clear of the main group into turn 2. And now how much help does anyone else have? Here comes Lawson Peel. He'll bring his teammate Craig Parks with him, the super speedway maestro from Talladega last Sunday. And Peel will strike first from the high side. He'll take on his teammate Kip Easley. No dice, no momentum, files back single file. It's been the story of the day for anyone trying to carry on through the outside momentum trains from the 28 degrees of banking. And again, it's because of that side draft effect. They nullified the strengthening of that side draft with these next-gen cars. So what used to give you big-time runs from the outside lane here at Echo Park Speedway is now resulting in failed attempts at moving forward. And because those drivers on the bottom continue to check up, since you have to slow down a ton just to make the corner and not spin the car out, it's helped those guys at the top maybe gain a couple of positions on the short term, but it's really the long-term gain that's been in progress for a bulk of the back end of the top 10. So Peel will walk back. Warren Kyle Keith will try and walk the plank from the outside lane in P9. And this time he's got formidable help. Justin Erb, Ross Harlow, Chris Progar. As they'll come across to 23 to go in the second stage in a race that has been caution-free on track so far. And despite the near spills from both Lawson Peel and Jeff Gilmore, and that 57 car getting a ton of damage, and since he has been docked out of this race, he has pulled his car behind the wall, so Gilmore will become the first DNF of the 20 registrants here tonight. We haven't really seen any other carnage and any other big moves. Everyone has really kept their own, minded their business, and in the urgency to try to go for a race win, it believes that they are really learning from Talladega last Sunday and the big crashes that took those playoff drivers out. I think it's still heavy on their mind entering tonight's race, and with the practice session lasting as long as it did, opened up at 6:30 p.m. Eastern, and with that qualifying session that got Stepien another pole in 2025, those guys are really adamant at making sure they are at least in stable approach to lap 200 with a shot inside the top group. And it's really going to be about, because the lack of momentum from the outside group, how are you going to push your way forward? We saw how Zachary Hall and Cedric Hunter made their way to the win in stage 1. That was because they had enough distance to the car back in 4th place, and so they could tandem together off of turn 2 and push their way around the single-handed Stephen Maggio. But if you're looking for the win, how much are you willing to use of the racetrack, and how much momentum are you willing to carry from either lane? And what lane do you choose? Several loaded questions if you want to come away with the win, and what's going to be the most important dub of the season for a lot of those guys beneath the cut line. There's Muscarella, fight for P6 with Craig Parks off the final corner. It's Maggio, Stepien, Easley, Stephen Harlow, and Lawson Peel cracking into the top 5. The silver bullet of Alex Muscarella peeking up the high groove. Stepien getting a bit of that clean air from the secondary groove on the high side, but it just really doesn't have enough help to peek up on Stephen Maggio with 19 to go in the stage. So as the field continues to make their way around this virtual Echo Park Speedway, a lot has been going on, but so far, so good. Over 82 complete green flag laps from Hampton, Georgia. On the other side, more coverage of the Droppin Hammah Cup Series and the semi-final race from Atlanta.
Let's go racing!
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
There's only one fuel that can drive the performance you demand from your car. New 94 Octane, the highest octane on the market, only at Sunoco.
Let's go. What's up? Yo, what's up, Kenneth? How's it going, man? How are you? Good. How you been? What you got in the bag, man?
I got a panini. I have a hoagie. I got it all through the Wall Rewards app.
You can order it all through the app?
You can order it all through the app.
I can order it all through the app. The world is my oyster! By placing your order on the Wawa app, you can pick up at any time with ultimate satisfaction. Gotta have a Wawa. And back live from the virtual Echo Park Speedway as we complete lap number 87 of the second stage here from Atlanta, Georgia. Kenneth Bueno in the broadcast booth with you on the KBueno Racing Network. And this is the onboard look from Steven Maggio, the current race leader, holding on in front of Steven Stepien, Stephen Harlow, and Kip Easley, the remainder of the top four. Maggio had led a majority of the opening stage tonight before Cedric Hunter and Zachary Hall, who was sitting second and third at the moment, surged their way to the high side in tandem and captured the stage victory and stage second place. Because they were late to pit road, they are now a lap down in 17th and 18th, and now it is Maggio in control once again, playing defense through the final 11 of this second stage. We'll go up to lap 100 before the yellow flag flies, and so far, so good for those running at the very bottom. They have been rewarded with momentum after momentum charge, and despite all of those drivers at the top trying to find their way and peek through the grass, they haven't really been able to find their way into the front five since a couple of drivers, and James Kunkel and Warren Kyle Keith did it earlier in the stage. But perhaps there is second breathing life for those in that secondary groove. Here comes Keith, pushed by Muscarella down to turn one. But again, they are plagued by the same issue that has hit every attempt at making headway from the outside groove. Lack of cars, number one. Lack of side draft, secondarily. So they will even out and plateau right around Craig Parks and Lawson Peel, but still real no inroads on anyone inside the top three from Harlow, Stepien, and Maggio, currently controlling the tempo of this field. And again, mentioned the big time gaps from those drivers running for the championship at the bottom end of the cut line. We mentioned the big change from last week at Talladega because Steven, Ross Harlow, Stepien, and Warren Kyle Keith were involved in a huge crash right in the second stage of the race. Because all that went down, it's 25 points sitting entering tonight's event between Cedric Hunter, the first man in, and Stephen Harlow, the first man out. Theoretically, the best chance mathematically that Harlow has in the group of 4 to make it past to the championship round next Sunday at Homestead Miami Speedway, but still a long road left to cover and pave if he wants to go for the title in 7 days' time. But he's had stage points. He's had a solid car tonight, although he's been involved in maybe 1 or 2 scares with a loose race car in the middle of turn 3. But so far, he has survived up until this point, and the Project Hopner Chevrolet will carry on for third in an attempt to stay afloat in the final 7 of the second sector of this race. And now you got to ask, is there going to be a move proposed by Stepien and Stephen Harlow? They are both teammates at Droppin the Hammah, but Stepien told us pre-race that the aggression is going to be there between those Droppin the Hammah drivers, and most likely they will not work hand-in-hand together because they understand their individual approach of making it to the round. None of those drivers in that team are in heading into this race. It's only Category 5 Esports and Drinkin' Bros Racing representation, so a tough mountain to climb for the drivers who call themselves friends and alliance members, now having to work sort of against each other individually. And now there is finally some breathing from that outside. Warren Kyle Keith will try and challenge for third. Alex Muscarella, great pusher behind to help. Can they catch up to Steven Stepien as they come off of turn 4? Here's the onboard look from Stepien, just watching keenly as that Target Toyota makes his way closer and closer to those drivers in the front running 2. Maggio gets shoved out of the way. A loose race car washes him up high, but he keeps onto the race car, and now that'll help those guys at the top. Warren Kyle Keith noses ahead for the race lead. Momentarily can't have it. Maggio takes control once again off turn 4. And now a caution out, trouble behind him. Alex Muscarella getting involved, and I believe Justin Erb with damage, and Daniel Holdcroft spun. Our first on-track yellow strikes with 4 laps to go in stage 2, and it happens at the back end of the main group, so a saving moment for Cedric Hunter and Zachary Hall, who were near to be put 2 laps down, and for just a second overall time tonight. But first for a crash, we will have a yellow thrown here from Hampton, Georgia. So let's figure out how this all began. And it's that bright green number 31. Daniel Holdcroft is at the very back of this train, right behind James Kunkel. And I'm not sure whether there was either help or just a lost race car. No, it was Alex Muscarella getting turned around. James Kunkel getting Daniel Holdcroft involved. And that 31 car was just collateral damage. But Alex Muscarella was really the main cause of the concern. So he was running on the outside second car, that silver and black Cobalt machine. A tap of the wall here. And he was already loose, but it was just that dealing blow by Ross Harlow, and the avoidance by James Kunkel was ultimately what carried Daniel Holdcroft into the grass and had them both spinning. So a yellow flag comes out for the first time tonight for on-track incident. Here's the race off pit road. Steven Maggio will have control, and I believe, given the scenario we are in, we do have enough time to get back to the start-finish line and complete stage 2 in maybe a 2-lap dash to the checkered flag. So with that, Warren Kyle Keith elects strategy is not going to be in the cards for him right now. He will elect to stay out alongside just about 2 other cars in Stephen Harlow and Daniel Holdcroft. Again, 2 drivers below the cut line, needing as many points as possible. And with this most recent yellow, that'll bring Cedric Hunter back to the lead lap. So he will enter pit road, but he should get that wave around from the iRacing official pace car. And we'll wait any word on whether Zachary Hall and company can also do the same, but it appears they are on pit lane. There they are at the bottom end of the apron on turn 3. And so they will give themselves a shot at getting some extra service. Daniel Holdcroft picking up damage repair. And Warren Kyle Keith trying to take a heave at it, throwing the kitchen sink at this situation, knowing he will pit in a couple laps time. And I do believe we will have a shot at least a 2-lap dash coming down to the green and white checkered flag. We do. So indeed, we will have a stun to the finish with Zachary Hall taking stage win number 3 of his career tonight from Echo Park Speedway at lap 50. Can it be Warren Kyle Keith taking a stage victory here in 2025 for the second time and first in these playoffs? And for Warren, the story has always been so close, but not close enough. 1/1000th of a second short at Daytona, and then a very rocky playoffs in which he has survived to this point. Solid finishes and very strong cars, but either bad luck or just aggression has taken him out. And he comes into tonight's race with a big target on his back, no pun intended, but with one from Talladega in which he made that big move to block Zachary Hall and Cedric Hunter in the middle of turn 3 and just overshot his judgment, got a little bit too low, got hooked by the Toyota behind him, and then just basically collateral damaged everyone else in the meantime. And obviously no intention there, but Keith, knowing his situation now, minus 50 from Talladega, minus 59 entering tonight's race from Echo Park Speedway. Keith needs a race victory, and he needs one urgently. This is his real last shot to give a race win before Homestead, Miami next Sunday. He will lead the field back to the restart zone and back to the green in the final 2 here in the second stage from Atlanta. Keith will take the field through the Echo Park Automotive restart zone. Good charge to turn 1. Once again, no charge from anyone up high. Maggio stays in tow with the 78 car. And there's Stepien with a shot. Stepien will find help. No. He can't off turn 4. White flag in stage 2. It took a 2-car effort to break the seal that Steven Maggio held at the beginning of this race to win the stage at lap 50. Does it change here? Lap 100. Blocking down the back straightaway. Stepien with help from Lawson Peel. But can it be enough? Keith trying to block. And Maggio points his way down low. Photo finish to the line. 3 wide. And I just about believe Warren Kyle Keith takes stage 2. Oh, we're going to keep racing, I believe. They are not going to throw the yellow. So perhaps the previous yellow might have just been the stage win. So Warren Kyle Keith in the lead for a moment. 3 wide and Stepien to the front. And apologies there. Almost thought that was going to be the stage win on a 2-lap dash. But race control decided that they were going to have that yellow be the stage break. And they were going to continue on to stage 3. So we will push forward. And the 9-time race winner, Lawson Peel, will steal the race lead for the first time in it all. Stepien had been up top, and he had given way. Steven Maggio falls to second. And for the first time, Lawson Peel will enjoy some clean air at the head of this field at lap 103. And a big shout out to Steven Maggio in the chat telling us that that was the stage conclusion. Now, we weren't entirely sure from race control. They had not let us know until that point, so we will press on forward here on the KBueno Racing Network with the entire field just about single file. And now as we enter this final 100-lap stage, and knowing the extra laps that we will get because of our SK Sim Racing race analysis, when we encounter a stage end properly, let's say it had ended on lap 101 like it was supposed to before that yellow had flown with Daniel Holdcroft, Muscarella, and company, we would have had maybe another lap or 2 to cut into the 3rd stage under the caution, and then we would get the green flag restart, therefore making that full-on stage under green just a lot less in distance than it would have been had the yellow not come out, or if we just started stage 3 like we did here, right about on the perfect lap. So with that in mind, how does that change the strategy book for the field? And knowing that they at least have one more pit stop in the bag left in this race, how much are they going to try and push it, and what are they going to do if this race remains under green? There's Ross Harlow pointing his way. Quite aggressive move on Kip Easley, but he'll siphon his way to 5th and stand behind his 2 fellow green banner teammates of Stephen Harlow and Steven Stepien. A reminder that they are in alliance with each other, dropping the Hammah, but they are working against each other. trying to go for a championship bid. Only one of them can make it in as of right now in the current playoff situation. And Stephen Harlow just about let the 16 car through, and he's going to let everybody else by on the high side. So not sure whether there was a problem for the 11 or whether he just got moved out of the way and is electing to stay out of trouble and avoid any further aggression to take him out. But he will hemorrhage a ton of track position. He'll be at the back for now, and it is all single file as they come off of turn number 4. Here's the onboard look from Cedric Hunter. Big mover, of course, since the drop of the green flag in stage 3. And because he got his lap back, he was able to move his way through the pack, and he is finally up to at least a commendable 7th place. And the Canadian trying to point his way into the championship 4 alongside his teammate Zachary Hall. We'll see the Paul setup shop number 17 and Tide car. Craig Parks up the road and watching that glare of the sunset as they come down to the quad oval back to turn 1. One thing that we haven't really seen in play, at least with the amount of cars we have tonight, only 20, now just about 19 with that Jeff Gilmore DNF from earlier on in this race. We haven't seen the problem of too many cars going too wide at the entry of turn 1. If you notice here, they had narrowed the track surface here at Atlanta. Before the repave, it was much wider with the older track surface, but because they had renovated it to be a super speedway, they narrowed down the overall track surface from the red and white line in the bottom to the outside wall. But they did not shave off any of that wideness from the quad oval front straightaway. There used to be more grass down there. They made it all pavement. So what used to be all grass and maybe a bit of pavement near the start-finish line for the Atlanta Motor Speedway logo, it has become all pavement right below that red and white double, or what would be double yellow line figuratively, but a red and white double line on the inside of the racetrack. So you'll see all that pavement down there. It is free of use. I'm not sure whether there is a line rule dictating any passes for position under there in this series, but we have seen drivers expand their aggression below that line off of turn 4. It seems to be free real estate. You can get that momentum and peak underneath the race car. But you'll take a look here off the front nose of Cedric Hunter. You'll see how narrow it is here in 3 and 4. It widens up right off the final corner. So here, you have so much asphalt down there, an extra maybe 40 to 50 feet. And then you'll see that red line just slowly creep up, and it narrows back down to what the track surface is in the corners of this racetrack, and it stays that way all the way back till the outside of turn 4. So we've seen before drivers go 3 and 4 wide in the attempt to use as much asphalt as possible, but then when they're forced to merge and narrow up back to turn 1, it has created significant problems. Drivers make contact, some drivers don't give way to make room for others to merge, and then you have plenty of trouble, and it really happens very fast. But because of the single file train action we've seen so far in this race, and because the outside hasn't been as prominent as maybe we imagined it to be heading into the green flag, that really hasn't been a problem. It's either been 2 wide, maybe 3 wide here or there, but the drivers have had enough space to maneuver around each other, and there hasn't been that place of claustrophobicness across the field. So as of lap 113, field all running in this single file train right behind the 9-time race winner and favored for the champion at the moment in Lawson Peel. Picked up his last win of the season in the final race of the round of 12. And ever since then, Peel has not been able to find his way to victory lane. Picked up the win at Darlington in what was a 4-in-a-row effort in the middle of the playoffs through the round of 16 and round of 12. And then his teammate Brandon Banks scored the win at Kansas in one where Peel wasn't really the quickest car on the racetrack. And then back at Talladega Superspeedway, an event in which Peel could have most likely gone to the checkered flag first with his teammate Banks in tow. But they saw Craig Parks find his way to the bottom, and Peel had to deal with a 5th place effort. But of course, it has been biggest mover time for Lawson Peel all season long. He's done this in every single race to which he hasn't qualified. And at first, maybe we thought it was because he had hit the wall on his qualifying attempt, but then we would soon to find out, midway through the season, that he had been doing it on purpose. He had not been spending time on track through the qualifying sessions. He would be always that first driver not to take a queue time and he would just cut his way through the field from there. It's a formula that has worked so far, and tonight it is no different. Rolled off the grid in 17th place, being that first driver, like we said, not to take a queue time in that 5-minute session before the green drop this evening. And from 17th, he has worked his way up to the race lead on 14 laps and counting led from Echo Park Speedway. And you think that given how dominant Austin Peay has been this season at a lot of the very hard-to-drive racetracks, Darlington, one of them, you know, Auto Club, a difficult racetrack, was one of his many race stubs this season, and some very hard tracks to drive. Lawson has still been consistent, even on these super speedway races. He won the race at Daytona to close off the regular campaign, and that photo finish with Warren Kyle Keith, that is always going to be ingrained in our memory. But top 5 at Talladega. Of course, like we mentioned, his worst finish on a super speedway this season was the first Dega race back in late March, where he rolled off 25th and came home 20th. But ever since, and throughout his super speedway career in this inaugural season, he only has that one finish outside of the top 5. He has had every other good finish at these larger and drafty heavy super speedways, despite being a driver that usually is not a super speedway specialist, like we've seen with some other drivers in this field. And you usually find those group of guys, particularly with James Kunkel and a couple of others, they like the super speedways a lot. It favors their driving style. But for Lawson, he hasn't been able to be stopped, quite frankly, on these bigger tracks, although this is 1.5 miles. But in this drafting style, Peay has not faltered. He's been consistent all across the board. And in a playoff system like this, consistency has mattered so much. But because he has captured so many wins in the playoffs, with that 4 in a row leading up to the round of 8, he built up so many playoff bonus points to which he can sit comfortably in this round. He's had solid finish after solid finish in these playoffs in the round of 8 from Kansas and Talladega last Sunday. So then creates that 49-point spread. And with the laps that he's leading tonight, surely he'll get another lap bonus. And you get another point to his resume that he can try and use towards a championship bid at a track that he is very skilled at in South Florida. And Droppin the Hammah continuing to run 3rd and 4th. Stepien, although he has been strong over the course of this race, he hasn't peeled out to make any moves. And that's probably because he has figured out exactly how difficult it's been to run up the high side and make it work. And Ross Harlow, despite picking up some front-end nose damage, still not entirely sure where it came from, but car number 16, that Tilvalhalla Project Chevrolet, is going to push up into the top 5 for the first time consistently all night long after having to start at the back of the field. So there's a look from Stepien running in 3rd. And take a listen as he modulates the throttle in the middle of the draft. A lot of that throttle modulation, maybe 85, 90% coming into the corner. And remember, Stepien had come down pit road because of that last yellow. Got 4 fresh Goodyear tires, 14.5 seconds on his stop in and out of his box. And just a matter of how big of a difference fresh tires are compared to old tires here at Atlanta Motor Speedway. You wouldn't think that with the new track surface and this overall banked configuration at a super speedway that tires would matter that much, but because they're turning so hard and that load is carrying on that right front tire, it is really creating more wear than usual. And at moments in the race in which at Talladega, Daytona, drivers would say, yep, it's only fuel only on this stop. At Atlanta, they're really more considering getting 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles. Some trying to elect 2, but could be a dangerous call if we get a yellow late in this race. How about the battle inside the top 7? This is Richard Swavely for Heavy Metal Jesus Motorsports, trying to puncture his way through the top 7. He is the only car currently on the outside groove. There is the Rick Man on the bottom right corner of your screen as he fights the 2-time Super Speedway winner this season of Craig Parks. And then there is that aforementioned Cedric Hunter, who had been in 7th place and now back to 8th. But look down, Craig Parks is going to lead a shallow group of machines to the entry of pit road. They peeled off on the apron. Warren Kyle Keith, Stephen Harlow among those that will undercut here with 75 laps to go in the race. Oh, and contact. As Warren Kyle Keith slowed up, Harlow hit the rear bumper. I believe he escapes without damage. But that drama will keep on. And they'll be in and out. There's the field going to attempt to unlap, or lap the main field rather. That just came down pit road. And thankfully there is that situation to which here at Atlanta and at Echo Park Speedway, because that pit road entry is so far ahead at the beginning of turn 3, you're obviously attempting to keep as much of the speed and turn as possible on the apron of the racetrack so you don't wash up the right front tire and kind of skid up to that apron transition, where more than often that banking difference will enable the rear tires to kick up and the car will spin around. But it gives more opportunity for drivers to slow down to pit road speed limit and make an entry into the line without the risk of speeding and getting a black flag. Previously here at Atlanta Motor Speedway, and even in the Super Speedway configuration on the sim, they did not have that pit road entry off of turn 3. So before, you would have to slow down in the middle of 3 and 4 like you would at other mile-and-a-halfs across the schedule, hop on the brakes, make pit road speed limit while turning and making your car rotate through that transition on the apron at the same time. That's why Atlanta, before it was reconfigured and repaved in 2022, it was kind of noted as a very difficult entry to pit road. Homestead was the same. A lot of other mile-and-a-halfs share those features of braking and turning at the same time, making it very hard to master braking at the right time and shaving off all that speed to make pit road speed limit. But because that pit entry is now in turn 3, more opportunities for those guys to carry on the momentum while also slowing down with enough time to spare so they won't risk locking up the front tires, either going for a spin, number 1, or speeding, number 2. But the big problem is the distance now. Because those car drivers have come down pit road, I believe 2 of them got pit road speeding penalties anyway. So Warren Kyle Keith, 16th now, 3 laps down, and Craig Parks also 3 laps down from the field. Pit road speeding penalties that will take them maybe out of this race if we stay green. And that is the last ever thing you would want to have happen to you if you are Warren Kyle Keith. Knowing his desperate situation, he's going to need yellows to bail him out of jail. And he'll be right in the thick of things from this front pack as Kip Easley shuts the door on James Kunkel up in the front. But both of them, Keith and Parks, at near 55-second stops. So that is heavy-handed for those 2. Black flags on pit road. And now Warren Kyle Keith, as long as he doesn't get saved from the yellows or from good luck, it appears his championship bid is going to be sealed tonight from the southeast. So he'll try his best to regain track position and unlap himself to put 2 laps down on the board instead of 3 laps down. But it's going to take a mighty Herculean effort for Keith to slide his way forward. And he's going to have the push, thankfully. Stepien and Ross Harlow getting shoved out of the way. And now we reside with the big question: when do the main group of guys come down pit road? They haven't elected to yet. They've gone now 35 laps on their stint, entering the final 70. And now Maggio will get turned at the entry of turn 1. What a save by Steven Maggio. Somehow he kept that car together, and we're going to roll forward and stay green. Oh my goodness. And how did that 97 car stay afloat? Watch this as they were coming down to turn 1. That white and red cartwheel target Toyota right to the inside. Maggio to block late. Oh boy, hard contact. And I don't know if it was the banking that saved Maggio or what. Well, what's that? 3 broadcasts in a row that Maggio has taken part of in the KBueno Racing Network, in which he has had a whale of a save. And the 97 car will keep on to 4th, but that will help the Droppin the Hammah duo. Stepien to runner-up, and Ross Harlow to 3rd, as we just about escaped our second on-track yellow from coming out. And what I was just about to say was, with the situation we've seen on tires and fuel, the 100% fuel tanks, you can't really make it all the way, I believe, from here on out. As long as you can get to lap 140, you come down pit road, you'll have 60 laps left. The main concern, of course, is going to be the Goodyear Eagles. How much grip will you have left in them by the course of this race, and if we stay green? But the biggest thing on fuel is that you probably can make it all the way to the checkered flag, but with that carry distance that the main group has in advantage in comparison to the likes of Steven Harlow, who runs in 13th, and that main group of cars that he kind of resides himself with, Justin Erb, Chris Progar, Kevin Roy, and Daniel Holtcroft. How much can the 11 car save? How much can he go before eventually things go sour and he runs the tank drive? Or if he can make it, what is he going to do to try and overcome this undercut deficit, knowing how long the main group have stayed out up until this point? We'll cross the line for what's going to be the final 44 laps of this race from Echo Park Speedway. It has been a very quick one. No yellows apart from one, with Alex Muscarello going around off of turn 4, but we had the stage yellow at lap number 51, with Zachary Hall coming away with the stage W. And from there on out, we have maintained this race clean and green as these guys try to wrangle these Chevrolets, Toyotas, all across this difficult mile-and-a-half. Stepien trying to hang tough in second place, but it's Lawson Peel still in control by a decent margin. There's our Charlie Byer Photography onboard camera with Peel. And just clear daylight as the sun sets here in virtual Atlanta. And just waiting for the moment to strike to come down pit road. Of course, he will burn the most fuel, being that first car in the lane, knowing how much clean air he is in, but not entirely sure if it'll have the same effect as it did at Talladega just last Sunday. It's much bigger track to cover. You're not counting down as many laps as you would here at Atlanta at 30.4 second laps for the race leader. And even those guys second on back inside the top 5. You know, you're still burning a lot of gas compared to the rest of the group, but not entirely as exacerbated as the larger super speedways we've encountered this season. But still a moment of questioning for those guys in the front. How long will they kind of overstay here on this long green flag stretch before they inevitably decide turn 3 and pit road entry is going to be their place to go? And if they do end up coming down pit road, how many of them end up with the mistake of speeding? Is that going to be a problem like it was for Warren Kyle Keith and company? Look at Steven Maggio pointing his way forward, not to be denied from Ross Harlow. He's going to slide under Steven Stepien, and Maggio aggressive, looking for the lead to turn 1. How about this race from Maggio? Has led the most laps of the group. And despite coming back to try and be a 4-time race winner this season, Maggio has certainly had his challenges with the playoff group. Of course, passed at the end of stage number 1 by the 2 Category 5 esports teammates, and then spread apart 3 wide as they were coming to the line to close off stage number 2. And then, of course, losing the lead in the middle of that group and trying to cut his way back to the runner-up spot. That Branch Chevrolet has been as strong as always in an effort that really is single-handedly carrying the KBueno Racing stable, especially in these final races of the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series campaign in Season 1. We saw Jaden Porter dominate Dover, win that race. We thought he would see him more often and showed up a couple more times, but hasn't been able to make more starts since. Ethan Fonseca Moreno did show around for a couple races this year, midway through the regular campaign and even a bit through the playoffs, but still Moreno really couldn't get back into more of these Sunday night races. And Steven Maggio has been sort of scattered in his attempts in this series to come back and win a 4th. But he has been here regardless and kind of stepping up for what KBueno Racing has missed with the other drivers not starting as much as this 97 car has. And look at this fight for 3rd. Richard Swavely has found some life. Behind him, James Kunkel, Steven Stepien, and perhaps a bit of Ross Harlow and Alex Muscarello. They're going to make it just about 5 to 6 cars on the outside train, and Richard Swavely aiming to take the race lead for the first time tonight and back into a race-high top 5. And now Swavely goes back down. Stepien will fight back up top in the attempt that the hope will carry him through with his teammates behind. But like we've seen all night long, side draft has nullified. Outside charges have gone null and void for the most part. But Kip Easley will try and hold on to the rope. He'll get the help from Steven Stepien off of turn 2. There go the 2 leaders to press charge. Peel and Maggio will stay up ahead. Kip Easley will remain in 3rd, and he did get a big piece of draft down this back straightaway, so the 3 Chief Chevrolet may just have a solid shot at keeping up with Steven Maggio and Lawson Peel. They understand that the run is in favor from those guys on the high side, so easily now could file down to the inside like he does here in 1. He'll take away 3rd, and Steven Stepien back in control of the secondary groove. And now you wonder with this call from Stephen Harlow, who is one of the solitary cars that is A, still on the lead lap, but B, one of those drivers to avoid a speeding penalty in that junction of the race. Did he pit too early now? Is there a point where this 11 car may have just put himself in a pretty deep hole? He's got some help. It's 6 cars in this group, including the 11. But how much time are they really losing in this group because of the pit road speeding penalties from both Craig Parks and Warren Kyle Keith? And how much that will affect the Project Hopner Chevrolet as he continues to watch this lead group of cars decide to stay out for as long as physically possible. And by now, coming down to 50 laps to go, they should be okay on fuel. It won't really be a conversation of can you make it on gas to the end. It's going to be about can you hang on to the handling of this car when the checkered flag flies. But it doesn't appear like there is much concern from these guys in the front. They've been running 100%. Hasn't really been a method of saving gas at this point. And so knowing how long and green this race has occurred so far, I believe they're really just hanging it all out until their fuel tanks go dry and they are really needed to come down pit lane, in which they can knock down that final stop. But huge possibility still for dramatic pit road speeding penalties, more point swings, and the rest of it. But it appears rather predictable right now, given the gaps that we saw before this race took the green flag here in Echo Park Speedway. And Lawson Peel leading as many laps as he have, if he can come away with the win, not only would it be double-digit W's in 2025, 10 race wins if he can get it done. It would be his first since Darlington in the back end of the round of 12. It would also just give him that golden ticket to Homestead that he's kind of holding already, given the gap that he maintains. He really just has to not show up or just have a really disastrous effort and have a brand new winner, but that really hasn't been the case. So with Peel maintaining his momentum all night long, it appears as long as he stays with a good finish and stays on the track, there's a crash behind on the quad oval. It is Steven Stepien and Richard Swavely involved. And the Methuen, Massachusetts native will have a damaged race car. Could this be the end of his championship hope? Our second on-track yellow involves a playoff driver. And is there suspension damage on behalf of the 88 car? Stepien spills with Richard Swavely on the high side in turn 4. And here's how it all happened. So they were riding into the middle of the racetrack. Turn 3, Stepien up top. He finds space on the bottom. And it's going to start with contact from him and Richard Swavely. And Swavely just got loose, traveled down the track, carried into Stepien. And that is a whale of a hit to the left side of the Droppin the Hammah Chevrolet. Just an absolute pancake to the left side of his car. Zachary Hall was also involved in this carnage as he was running 3rd in this group. And that 32 car just lost way. And he just comes down the banking, chases into Stepien. And that will be a heartbreaking move and a heartbreaking situation for the 88 car. He will spend his time on pit road. And much like the fate of Warren Kyle Keith and several others, his championship pursuit may just be dashed if he goes a lap down or more. So now that eliminates any chance at strategy calls under green for the rest of this race. As the main field comes down, everyone with their proper service for fresh tires and fuel. And so with under 50 laps to go, and now it's confirmed they can make it until the end as these lights come on from Echo Park Speedway. And now it's just a matter of who can win on straight up track position, whether Peel can come away with win number 10, whether Maggio can squeak out win number 4, or whether there is another non-playoff driver to enter victory lane tonight. Kip Easley, who's been strong on super speedways, can need one. James Kunkel, who's found success here at Atlanta before in Sunoco Cup competition, he can end up with one. Ross Harlow, a much-needed race victory to get into the final round. Alex Muscarella, close, and hasn't been able to win a race so far yet. And as we get the 1 to green, plenty of wave-around cars. We are only going to have 12 machines, I believe, now 11 cars on the lead lap from 19 that are still on the track. And make that 18 cars as Steven Stempien calls it over from Echo Park Speedway, and he will now officially be eliminated from title contention. A heartbreaking end to the pursuit of the championship for Stempien, who over the last several races has not really been able to find his way, and we mentioned how consistency matters and rushing matters as well in a 3-race format. Although he had the best race of his playoff run in the round of 12 with a 5th, 3rd, and 7th in those 3 races, it was 12th at Kansas, 21st at Talladega after the crash, and now it is going to be possibly beyond the top 15 here from Atlanta, Georgia, as Stempien ends his Droppin the Hammah Cup Series title campaign tonight, and he will try and go at it for a non-playoff win at Homestead, Miami, 1 week from today. So on our second green flag restart from an on-track yellow, it's Lawson Peel and Steven Maggio through the Echo Park restart zone. Green flag with 48 laps to go. There's Maggio to shut out any momentum from Kip Easley's Chevrolet. And with all that lost momentum, look how much distance carries from the 4th place driver to literally everyone else in the group. All the attrition taking part here from Atlanta. And Maggio settles into P2, Easley 3rd, Kunkel 4th, and Ross Harlow into the top 5. As they'll stay single, potentially just waiting this thing out until the final few laps. And Lawson perhaps trying to assert his dominance once again as they'll come back to turn 1. There's Kunkel high side move in turn 3, the Mountain Dew Toyota Camry. And how many times have we seen tonight, due to just the checkups on the inside lane, one single driver going up top, holding out hope that he can push his way forward. It has worked a couple of times this evening, but hasn't been in favor for a majority of the guys who have gone out to those frontiers. Kunkel in turn will fall in the same vein as all of those guys. Sean Kalos will find his way to the inside, and this will be the battle for 5th. Back to turn 3. So like I mentioned, 11 cars on the lead lap in this race. The last machine that is on the lead lap is the Wisconsin native and co-league owner Chris Progar, who was, I believe, involved in some sort of situation earlier on tonight, but good to see that Progar and his Fastenal Chevrolet still kicking it strong inside the top 11. And he's got Zachary Hall technically right behind him on track position, but Hall, because of the pit road penalty that him and his teammate Cedric Hunter got at the end of stage 1, he hasn't been able to recover. He has remained a lap down. And despite his teammate Hunter getting his lap back a while ago, none of the yellows have enabled Hall to get back on the lead charge. And the freaky fast Toyota Camry just kind of wondering what if he was on the lead lap. Where would he be and how hard would he be working to move back to the front several spots in which he took the lead away from Maggio at the end of the first stage on lap 50. And then 2 laps down is the 13th place car of Warren Kyle Keith, of course, with that pit road speeding penalty under green, that undercut strategy that he hit with Craig Parks and Stephen Harlow. He just was too fast entering, and the St. Augustine, Florida native just going to have to hope for a plethora of yellows to fly in this final edge of the race. Kevin Roy has spent a majority of this event 2 laps down or more. He is 2 laps down in 14th. Daniel Holtcroft back in the top 15, 2 laps behind. And so is Craig Parks in 16th. And then our next cars on the racetrack, Justin Urban, Richard Swavely. Although I believe Richard Swavely is still getting his damage fixed. 7 laps down and counting. Justin Urban, there he is on track. That Home Depot Chevrolet is 19th, 11, laps down. So that's the tail of the tape here from Echo Park Speedway. The attrition large, but kind of what was expected in these final two, knowing that they were both going to be super speedway affairs. And when we got that news, of course, that the Atlanta race was not going to be in that old 2008 iRacing surface, we knew we were in for a wild one, especially in the semifinal round where the stakes are higher, the pressure is on the most, and you really look at the playoff group to perform as best as they can. You whittle it down from 16 guys in which there are more overall predictions and safer drivers who are just generally better, and they're able to have decent races in the first three, move on to the next round, and carry on as usual. But in a round of 8 like this, when there's just one race to go, and there's 4 going to be going home, 4 that'll be advancing, in this case 3 that are advancing via points, and 1 in Brandon Banks advancing via the win at Kansas, it's just more of a situation of how much pressure will you have as a driver below the cut line. And given the DNFs at Talladega, it was the wrong group of 4, a wrong quartet, with all of them 20 or more points below that round of 4 cut line as they were heading into tonight. So they really needed a heave, they needed stage wins, they needed the race win, and the only driver currently in contention to do that is Ross Harlow in P5. And look at this run here. Kip Easley, push from James Kunkel, will have a shot at the lead, nose ahead in turn 1. And Kip Easley, the Nixa, Missouri native, for the first time tonight, will see the light of day from Atlanta. New race leader with 40 laps to go. And for the first time since the beginning of this race, where Steven Maggio did it, Kip Easley is going to rally to the front and take the top spot from the outside. They are 3 wide behind. Chris Progar fending through the middle. As they were getting by Justin Erb, they settle out quickly, 2 wide back to turn 1. But what a viable run for Kip Easley, first time in control. And now what's even more important is that he has help. And with Lawson Peel, perhaps aggressive to go for the race win, probably can afford to push his teammate and good friend Kip Easley to his first career, dropping the Hammah Cup Series win. After many a race in which this 8 car has been close on these super speedways and hasn't been able to get it done. Talladega was actually the worst finish on a super speedway for him this season, where he ended up in 26, but it was a great qualifying effort, put himself inside the top 5. But we remember back at Daytona, it didn't really fare well for him either, although it was a better finish at 23rd. And then, of course, Talladega, the first time we were there, 4th. At Daytona, we were there the first time, a top 10 with a stage win. So we know that Kip Easley can put himself in conversation to win these races. But at the moment, it's more about how long can he hold on to the grip that he carries at the front of this field, as they are mostly all single file. James Kunkel and Warren Kyle Keith will try to push themselves forward. Keith in the attempt to unlap himself and look for the lucky dog. So as we continue on here from Echo Park Speedway, quick reminder of the upcoming events that will happen here on the KBueno Racing Network. And boy, we have a lot to cover in the next week or so. As we come across to next Thursday, we will have the SEC Cup Series All-Star Race from the Kentucky Speedway. The virtual Bluegrass State will host the SAC Cup Series Best. That coverage will begin on August 7th at around 8 p.m. Eastern. You'll find that coverage right here on the KBueno Racing Network. And then that final race, the championship down in Homestead, Miami. Brandon Banks is confirmed. Who will be the other 3 that join him? Find out 1 week from tonight, August 10th at 8 p.m. Eastern. We'll have our pre-race coverage begin then, and then our championship coverage after that. And then the KBRN Truck Series kicks off the following day, the Monday, August 11th. A very anticipated moment for us here at the KBueno Racing Network. We have been in planning for that series for a little while now, so be sure to tune in on August 11th at around 8 to 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. New reignited battle for the lead, and this time it is Steven Maggio. More patronage up top. The 97 car breaks free. Steven Maggio to the lead with 32 to go. What a drive by Maggio. And it lessens the amount of cars on the high side again from 5 to 4. As Kunko side drafts Kip easily, Steven Maggio is going to offer more assistance up top. So maybe it is not quite over yet for those running in the high groove, shutting down Kip easily in turn 1. And for as many laps as Steven Maggio has led tonight, he has nothing to lose. And the 97 will choose up top, blocking Kip easily at the right time. And this is the most packed, most congested that we've seen this field in a little while, coming down to the final 30. Here's our onboard camera from Maggio. Tenth career start for the Cairo, New York native. Three-time race winner, picked up his most recent early June at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And after going from his first start at first win to his last start before, July 13th at Darlington Raceway, he had a best finish of race wins 3 times, but hasn't finished a race up until that point outside of the top 5. But everything changed at Darlington. Not the greatest event, finished in 11th where he started that event, and then 25th at the Talladega Superspeedway last Sunday. So for Maggio, it's been a bit of a fall from grace over his last several starts. Tonight could be the big change for the rookie driver, as he will hold that hope. And in the top 5, only one playoff driver. That's that 16 car of Ross Harlow, as Lawson Peel has fallen through, and he sits behind Muscarella, sitting in that 6th position as the auction continues. Right behind him, James Kunkel and Stephen Harlow going at it now with 28 laps to go. Sun has set nicely here in virtual Atlanta, Georgia. And we're so glad that you're joining us on the KBueno Racing Network tonight. It has been a rather interesting race. Lots of green flag affairs, not too many yellows, but some of those very pivotal. Of course, Steven Stempien, if you missed it, he was involved in one of our most recent caution flags, crashed at the exit of turn 4 with Richard Swavely, and so that will eliminate Steven Stempien from title contention as he DNFs tonight at lap number 173. The only playoff driver that is below the cut line still in contention to win this race is going to be Ross Harlow and Stephen Harlow, who are both on the lead lap, 5th, or now 3rd and 8th place. Warren Kyle Keith comes into tonight minus 59. He is still 2 laps down in 13th. And as the story goes, Category 5 Esports, one of them a lap down, one of them in P7. But other than that, nothing else to write home about. It has been a calm race, a very predictable one in this championship fight. And there is Stephen Harlow, that orange, white, and silver Chevrolet, as he tries to push forward on the inside. Great move there, pointing to the inside, poking underneath. Cedric Hunter, that bright pink Hello Kitty Toyota. They're going to make contact once and twice in the middle of the corner. And nowhere for Pugh to go. Shutout, turn 3. That was physical between those two cars. The 11 not giving any leeway to the man he knows that's going to point his way in should the race stay as is. And will the aggression peak up for the Droppin the Hammah Chevrolets? Knowing that Stempien's out, the Harlows and the two brothers have to work together if they want to get at least one of them in come Homestead. Once more, single file through the main group. Our first side-by-side action just about for 9th place on the racetrack. And there goes Warren Kyle Keith in an attempt to find the clean air and some of that extra speed. He'll bring in James Kunkel in the attempt to put himself 1 lap down. And if he can do that, then he would just pray that a yellow flag comes out that he is not involved in. And as long as he can get ahead of Zachary Hall, that is the mindset in order to get one last breath of life in this race. But should we stay green in this final 22, really going to be no luck for Keith to get back into that momentum train and put himself in conversation for the win. I'll come across the lap car on the outside. That is at Mountain Dew Chevrolet of Daniel Holtcroft. Lawson Peel and Cedric Hunter are going to try to find something on the secondary groove, but once more, bottom edge is the upper edge. And you're going to have the upper hand if you're running closer to that red and white line, although there is a bit of gain momentum there from the Napa Auto Care Chevrolet. And they'll push forward, although not to really any avail here inside the top 6. They'll maintain even with the 11 car of Stephen Harlow as Steven Maggio leads them across the stripe at lap number 180. 20 to go here from Echo Park Speedway. And once more, the question becomes, where is the move and when is it going to happen and who is going to work together? We've seen Kip Easley and Ross Harlow try to be nose to tail here, but they haven't really been close enough to gain any of that momentum on the race leader. They have maintained their distance. They have kept in their plan and really not trying to go up top and kill their momentum as we move forward under green, just given these scenarios. But how about Steven Maggio? An amazing race put on tonight. They're going to get around the lap car of Richard Swavely. Now, how does this go? Kip Easley will go up top, and the rest of the field will be there. Kip Easley sideways in the middle of turn 3, and he'll catch his teammate in Lawson Peel. Do any other drivers go around? The answer will be no. And did Kip Easley just throw away his shot at the win? Now the yellow flag is coming out. A pivotal caution that will get Zachary Hall on the lead lap. And lots of damage to the 3-Cheese Chevrolet of Kip Easley as he went sideways, getting around the lap machine of Richard Swavely. So have a look here as they're coming into turns 1 and 2. They will encounter that Heavy Metal Jesus Motorsports Toyota of Richard Swavely, who doesn't give way to the leaders, but instead remains down low. So it forces Maggio's hand. He has to go up the racetrack, and of course, all of those leading cars will follow. And I think right about here, there is maybe a bit of aero packing, and the rear spoiler air goes away. Lawson Peel with big-time damage on the front end of his Chevrolet as he backed into his teammate. And the yellow flag comes out as a result. Just about a 3 or 4 car incident. Here's the perspective from Lawson. And it's textbook nowhere to go. And as he watches the cars in trouble behind, Lawson will have to end up on pit road. He'll be joined by Stephen Harlow and a couple of others as Steven Maggio, Ross Harlow, and Alex Muscarella will stay out as we approach what perhaps will be a restart inside 15 to go. There's Zachary Hall getting his lap back. And maybe that will keep Warren Kyle Keith in position to gain back to the lead lap if another yellow were to fly. As I believe him, Craig Parks, and Kevin Roy will have that wave around from the iRacing official pace car, so they could very well just regain their laps back, but it's just a matter of figuring it out. And with Lawson and company coming down pit road, yeah, it is going to be a long while for the Columbus, Mississippi native to get back on track. As we'll try to have a word with the 9-time race winner this season, Lawson. Not the ideal situation there. Your teammate goes sideways. You're backed up right in the middle of the group as he comes up the banking. Tell us what you saw there and what you were trying to do as you fell back in the draft and had to carve your way through the top 10.
Yeah, I didn't see anything until I saw him kind of just sitting in the middle of the track right there. So, yeah, I think I'm going to have 1 second, 0, and I'm going. So I had just enough time to get it all fixed there. So not killed, just got to get back up there. I was trying to get back to Kip. You know, I got shuffled by both of the Harlows. They both kind of got to my inside and shuffled me up to the top. So cost me some positions, but we'll just try to recover here. I think we got time. I just expected to kind of get chaotic here. So I'm probably going to have a couple more wrecks. We'll see.
I'd imagine it will get chaotic given this circumstance with 15 laps to go. Lawson, we appreciate the time. Tough break on the incident, but thankfully the car's all good, and best of luck on the restart.
Yep. Appreciate it. We'll try to recover here.
So Lawson Peel will try and carry back from what's going to be just about the outside of the top 10 in P12, but that will land him as the last car on the lead lap, so may have to watch out for what could be either more carnage at the front or a potential lack of momentum from the back end of this train. So just an update on the Parks, Keith, and Roy machines. They will remain 2 laps down, but if they end up with another yellow, Keith is in place to gain at least 1 lap, and so is Craig Parks, given how close they are to each other on the racetrack. Craig so far has the upper hand, so if a yellow were to fly soon and the 17 car has the edge, he will regain the lap back. And Warren Kyle Keith will have to hope that more yellows come out from here on through. From Echo Park Speedway, final 15 laps off of turn 4. Pace car is down. Maggio, Harlow the front row, Mascarella and Kalist back in the second row. Green flag back in the air, and look how much momentum the top 2 gain to turn 1. It is an all-out drag race with no drafting help, and here they come. Mascarella high. He'll help his teammate. And James Kunkel with just enough oomph to give Maggio the race lead again off turn 4. Again, a near must win for the 16 of Harlow coming into this one, minus 40 plus. And now with hope, second on the outside. James Kunkel in search of his first win. Cedric Hunter right behind, coming to 13 laps to go. All over this Echo Park Speedway with nowhere to hide. Gridlocked to the start-finish line. 42 versus 97, back to turn 1. And the most cars we have seen on the top is right now. Zachary Hall, who got his lap back. He'll go down low. Try to follow in the tracks of Kip Easley. The ill but still not broken number 8 car on the inside. 5th in that lane. 12 laps to go. And again, inside the upper hand. And can you believe this way the race has gone from long green flag runs to a pivotal yellow inside 70 to go. And now an all-out free-for-all as Kunkel wants to spoil the party and become the second consecutive non-playoff driver to win in these playoffs. And Ross Harlow trying to squeak on by to the championship round. Cedric Hunter trying to help Maggio pull ahead. They'll remain side by side off of turn 2 with 10 laps to go next time. And other than gaining more cars, what else can this outside line do? How much more organization do they need? And how much more momentum can they carry? As Maggio points in front. Stephen Harlow, keep an eye out on him. He's running 5th, but still a chance to win. And it has been an up and down race for the Vermont native who has kept his car clean, nearly had a disastrous strike to the wall, and now we're 3 wide. Kunkel out of the way, dropping the Hammah teammates up top. Harlow gonna split them 3 abreast in 1 and 2. And will that work? No. Kunkel finds space on the bottom, trying to get a second shot at the top. And 8 laps to go at the stripe. Stephen Maggio at the front of this field. Cedric Hunter second. Stephen Harlow third. And Craig Parks just trying to play defense on the Amp Energy Toyota on top. Well, we continue to stay green. There's Lawson Peel down the bottom behind Zachary Hall. And again, no one can make headroad on the outside. With 7 laps to go, will anyone try and spill on top of Stephen Maggio? Car sideways, Craig Parks out of the way on the back straightaway. Maggio has been dominant all night long. But remember how the race ended in stage 1, where Maggio was in control of the lead, and it just took 2 teammates working well together to push up on the outside here and make the run to the start-finish line first. Oh boy, big moment from Cedric Hunter. And now a spinner. Zachary Hall is sideways. He'll bring Kip Leasy along for the ride. And Chris Progar, yellow flag with 6 laps to go. Unbelievable. And now we could enter Droppin the Hammah Cup Series overtime for the 2nd straight week in a row. Here's our secondary shot, as Zachary Hall was running behind easily. And I don't know if there was contact at first or... Yep, there was contact. Ross Harlow just caught the quarter panel. Hall was sideways, did a great job of saving it. But it's Kip Easley who was involved in our last caution of the race, picking up Chris Progar and dealing more damage to those 2 Chevrolets. Here's a look on board with Easley. Hasn't been easy for this car in the last few laps. Yeah, just got nudged out from the high side and the car just lost control. And thankfully no one else got in it other than Chris Progar. And it's just an interesting situation that will put Stephen Maggio on the back burner and put him in a place to hang on to the field either in overtime or with an organic 2-lap to go restart. And Maggio will have to sustain all of that waiting pressure from the rearview mirror as we'll be sitting behind the iRacing official pace car. Only 3 cars in this top 5 running for the championship, and 2 of them below that sacred cut line. Cedric Hunter came into this race with a 25-point gap back to Stephen Harlow. And then Ross Harlow just about 40-ish points behind the cut line. And it appears they are the only 2 that can keep their championship hopes alive. As Stephen Maggio tries to become the 2nd consecutive non-playoff driver to come away with a win. And his 4th race victory of 2025 hangs in the balance. Let's join the Cairo, New York native of Stephen Maggio. Stephen, you've led the most laps tonight at 108 and counting. I don't know if you were liking the situation to have that caution come out. At the time it did, but what is it going to take to hold the fort and keep your race lead intact for your 4th race win of the year?
Yeah, I definitely liked the way we were, because I had Cedric behind me and he didn't have any teammate help, and now we're going to restart and I'm going to have 2 teammates stacked up behind me. So I'm not really sure. Might have to throw some blocks here, but now I know some guys are racing for playoffs. I don't really know the situation, and I'll try to be respectful, but I'm still going for this win. And I've been raced harder in this league than some other leagues, so I'm going to block a little harder than I maybe would in other leagues, and we'll see what happens. But I wish it just stayed green there, unfortunately.
You used the high side to capture the lead early on in this race, and that's really where the dominance started. But we really haven't seen much of the top groove since, other than maybe short spurts of good runs. How much are you going to keep that in mind with the less inside draft, and how just great that bottom side has been, how reliable it's been too over the course of the night?
Yeah, you definitely got to protect the bottom more than the top, but like if the inside clears the outside here and I got 2 teammates behind me and they go to my outside in 3 and 4, then I'm just going to lose, because you saw what happened in stage 1. So it's important to make sure that they don't have a massive run, but I think I'd rather be on the bottom as long as I don't get completely left out to dry.
Well, Steven, a great run nonetheless being put up until this moment. Hopefully things last with 2 laps to go. Best of luck on the restart.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Steven Maggio, the lone BBR representative driver, is going to try and eke out his 4th career victory in an organic 2-to-go restart from Echo Park Speedway. Cedric Hunter on the outside of the front row, and a pair of teammates in row 2 with Steven and Ross Harlow, the brothers, trying to get one of them in the championship round next Sunday. Do we extend this race or not? All eyes on Steven Maggio. Fantastic restart, but so much space to turn 1. And look at the lack of help on the bottom. So much separation. The Droppin the Hammah teammates, the 2 Harlows sticking together off of the 2nd corner. And it's a single file train. Casey Knighton on the high side. As it appears we will end up seeing this race go to the white flag on distance. Final lap from Echo Park Speedway, and the top 2 are clear by at least 0.2 of a second. Can anyone build up a charge worthy of beating the front 2? There they go on the high side. Steven and Ross Harlow up the banking. In an attempt to get one more shot, they will be there. Last charge. Defense standing for Steven Maggio. But off the final corner, does anyone flinch? Running to the line, Steven Maggio in 3-wide fashion takes away his 4th career, Droppin the Hammah Cup Series win. And what a standoff. It all took momentum and proper defensive lines for Steven Maggio to become the 2nd consecutive non-playoff driver in this postseason to capture a win. And just for the 4th time and first time at a super speedway, Droppin the Hammah victory lane, will see Steven Maggio as he takes control and wins from Echo Park Speedway. Cedric Hunter ends up in 2nd, and Steven Harlow, who wraps up the top 3, may not have enough to make it into the championship finale at Homestead Miami Speedway, still with a green banner. As Steven Maggio continues his celebrations, first win since Indianapolis back in early June. So as Maggio continues his celebrations from Echo Park Speedway, let's take a look at the full unofficial results after a rather long one here from Hampton, Georgia, and an organic 2-lap-to-go restart that brings the field to the checkered flag with Steven Maggio ahead by 53 1/1000ths of a second. Cedric Hunter back in P2. Steven Harlow ending up with the top 3 effort with Ross Harlow behind, but knowing their situation heading into this race, it may not be enough to advance into the championship finale, especially with a great finish by Hunter and some stage points. James Kunkel strong all night long. Give him credit. Led a couple of laps in the 42 car. Captures the top 5. Sean Kalis back in 6th. Alex Muscarella with P7. Kip Easley in 8th. Casey Knight in 9th. And Zachary Hall, who regained his lap back earlier on tonight, I believe will still point to himself into the championship finale next week at Homestead. Lawson Peel, the final car on the lead lap, picked up heavy damage late in the going, but with all of the points he carried going into this race, it may just be a matter of when he's going to enter the championship round, confirmed versus if. Kevin Roy back in 12th, Daniel Holdcroft in 13th, and Warren Kyle Keith, because of that pit road speeding penalty midway through the race, put him several laps down, and he just could not regain any of the momentum. He will be eliminated after tonight. Chris Progar, Craig Parks, 15th, 16th, with Justin Erb 17th, 18th for Richard Swavely. A big crash for Steven Stempian will take him out of championship contention as he comes home in 19th. And Jeff Gilmore round out the remaining drivers in tonight's top 20. So it is Steven Maggio who talked to us right before the green flag restart. He will come away with his 4th career Droppin the Hammah Cup Series victory. And Steven, you said you want to be reliable on the bottom, you want to be defensive, and defensive you were. No real challenge until the final corner, but you kept strong, and now it's 4 race victories of the season. Is there a bit of relief now that it's over, and how much of the emotion is there after tonight's dub?
Yeah, for sure. I'm relieved. Winning is always pretty relieving. I had to try to play that restart smart because, normally you want to just jump out to a big lead and, you go really early so that no one can roll or no one can like roll with you and everything. And you kind of want to do that, but like myself, I can't get too far out because then they get a big run and, I can't block that. But I needed to get Cedric in front of me, so I knew it couldn't go late. So I just tried to go before anyone could roll and then hope that they all had the same reaction time, which is what happened. And he went and third went, but since he was side by side with me, he was able to just slide in behind me once we hit the line. And I think that they tried to like lay back or something to maybe work together, and it made it so that Cedric never had a run on me until out of 4. And then I just tried to block cleanly and make sure. The worst thing you can do in that situation is he peeks at your inside, and then you try to block it a little late, and you shove him down below the line, and you lose the race because you force him onto the apron. So I just tried to play everything as smart as I could there, and happy it all worked out.
It all worked out for you at the end, but it was overall domination. 112 laps led in this 200-lap race. It seemed like you were able to master staying up front and maintaining that momentum. And even if you kind of fell back, you were able to charge your way through the field. We kind of talked about it when the next gen update first came out, and you said you kind of like the Atlanta Motor Speedway. You've had a bit more time to register how this car feels in the draft. How differently have you had to play this race versus other super speedway events, given the configuration of Atlanta and what you were able to do to stay up front?
Atlanta didn't really change much. The only thing that really changed is you can air pack a little more. So first is pretty loose, which I like. I think it's fun. But with the next gen update, this track didn't really change that much. I just love this track. It's silly to say for super speedway that I think this is my best track, but I really do think it's my best track. And you definitely have to drive it. It's not like a normal super speedway where you're just full throttle. I mean, when you're leading, and when you're not leading because you have to check up anyway, you're not full throttle, and you have to really drive it. So yeah, I love this track, and just happy to get another win. I kind of forgot what your question was, but yeah, just was everything worked out the way I was hoping for it to. Oh, I remember. Yeah, I started in the back, and I just kind of channeled my inner Dylan. He's not watching this for sure, but if he was, he'd know what I'm talking about. Just taking every hole, and not really being a nice guy and being patient. I took people through wide, I think 3 times to get to the lead on the outside, and then shout out Kunkel. Oh my gosh, he gave me so many good pushes this race. I think both times I got the lead on the outside, he was the one that pushed me. And then later in the race, when I had the teammates try to go to my outside, there he was up the inside, and he gave me a push and made sure those guys didn't get out in front of me. So huge shout out to him. I wouldn't have won the race without him. It was really fun having him push me. And when you run the outside, you can kind of just pin it. And I think that some people don't really know that you can do that, and that's why the outside doesn't work that much. But if you hold it completely full throttle and never let off, it'll work because the inside has their checkups, and that's when you just take advantage of it when they lose their momentum.
So it's 4 race victories this season, and apart from Lawson Peel and Craig Parks, you are one of those drivers to have more than one, but you have the second most race victories of any driver this year. Talk about the impact in which you've made already from your subtle amount of starts. This is only your 10th start in the series, and I guess any momentum that could transfer to Homestead, Miami if you show up next Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, the tracks are so different, but it's been really fun, and I'm just part-time racing for wins, so getting the wins is obviously a good thing because I can't race for points or anything like that. So yeah, I think I've trying to remember what tracks I won on. Pocono, Atlanta, did I win Nashville? So like Nashville's a really tight track. And I don't. If Homestead's a night race, then it'll be better for me. If it's a day race, then I'm probably gonna struggle because it'll be really loose. But I do think I've gotten better at loose tracks. So we'll see. We'll see what I can do. I think Lawson's gonna be hard to beat, and obviously it's a championship race, so I have to be. I have to be very careful to not get in anyone's way and not ruin anyone's championship. So honestly, I'm not even sure if I'm gonna race because I don't really like affecting the championship as a part-timer. I don't really want to do that, so we'll see. Not sure what the situation is yet.
Well, regardless, you have stood out here in this Droppin the Hammah Cup Series season, and as a part-timer, you have really shined in the spotlight. 4 race victories this season, including this one here from Echo Park Speedway. Steven, on behalf of the win, anybody that you want to give a shout out to or thank for tonight's run?
Yeah, shout out you guys in the booth. No Francisco again tonight, I assume.
No, just me tonight. Not the greatest,
okay.
but yeah, just me.
Yeah, just you. Man, I wish Francisco was here. It would have been so much better. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, shout out you in the booth and Francisco when he's here, and I'm sure Charlie. I'm not sure if he does DTH, but Charlie and Kenneth. Nope, Keelan. Sorry, Keelan. And yeah, shout out my team. No one was here. I did the solo, so that was pretty cool. You know, we got these super teams. We got like 3 different teams with 5 people, and I was solo, so that was pretty cool. But if they were here, you know, Ethan, Jaden, Tim. And I think that's about it.
Well, Steven, a great race tonight. As always, a dominant performance. And on behalf of all of us at the KBueno Racing Network, congratulations on the 4th race victory of the year. If we see you at Homestead, we'll see you then. But if not, a great season put together and a fantastic effort all year round. Congratulations on the dub tonight from Echo Park.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Steven Maggio in his 97 car crawls away with dropping the Hammah victory lane for the 4th time this season. And Cedric Hunter, the man who finishes right behind, looks like he just wanted to carry Steven Maggio to the start-finish line, knowing his situation. Cedric, it's not a race victory, but the overall scope of it is you had enough points to be above the cut line heading into this event, and it appears that, barring any official ruling decision given your stage points and finish, you will be advancing to the Championship 4 at Homestead Miami Speedway. How does that sound, and what does that feel like?
It sounds great, man. The game plan tonight was obviously go in, try and get as much stage points as we can to put ourselves in a comfortable position where we're actually locked in. And I felt like after stage 1, when Zach and I went to you, I told him, I was like, all right, I'm pretty sure, I'm like 99% sure that mathematically we just have to not let them win and we make it through. And then obviously we had the mistake on the pit road entry because we just weren't paying attention, as seems to happen quite often. So we messed up, went a lap down, and Zach and I, we were just kind of talking. We're like, even if we're a lap down, like we have an effect still on us moving on, and you know, we stayed with it and put ourselves in a really good position there at the end. I had to apologize to Stephen Harlow there because I was definitely playing the whole cat and mouse game at the end, where like controlling lines and trying to box them in as much as possible. And I honestly, I don't think winning the race even crossed my mind once. You know, those last like 30 laps or so is fully just don't let them win and we're fine. So I think we did a pretty good job. I'll take 2nd place for that.
You know, when you and Zachary Hall crept up to the front, your teammate Zachary won stage 1. You were able to get great stage points then with the 2nd place finish. But then the pit road situation happens and you guys fall a lap down. And then all of a sudden you're kind of without your teammate for a good majority of the race because you get your lap back first. And it takes another while for Hall to find his way back in the lead lap. How big of a difference was that driving-wise to find teammates or find drivers to work with, knowing that you kind of didn't have that safety net with Zachary, in which you guys worked really well together in that first stage?
Oh, it was huge. I mean, that the entire time he was a lap down and stuff, like he was obviously doing whatever he could to just not, you know, if a caution were to come out, not to get an incident point so he can get back on lead lap. So he's playing the safer approach, which obviously I don't blame him for. He has a race. He was locked in, I guess, regardless, right? Like by the time that everything rotated through, I think he was a lap down, but only in like 11th. So I would have had to basically win the race anyways to pass him in points. So he was playing the safe game of just getting back on lead lap and having a shot at anything at the end. And my whole thing is, you know, it's I'm on the line and you know, I have to make sure that somebody doesn't win, and that was the strategy going into it. But when you do have somebody behind you that you can rely on, obviously it makes you a little more I guess willing to take risk and kind of you have that cushion to fall back on. So it was huge. I think he got caught up on something on the last lap, so that sucks for him. Really good showing tonight. I think that we're going to practice a lot, hopefully this week, and try and win ourselves a championship. We got, you know, 50% chance going into it. It's either going to be Cat 5 or Drinker Bros. So I think it's going to be a really, really good race next week.
What's it going to take to stand on top in Homestead? Because points don't matter anymore. It's just finishing ahead of the other 3. And how are you going to try and learn as much as possible from Homestead Miami to be that best driver come next Sunday?
I think we're probably going to practice for the first time this season. We finished 2nd and 3rd or on the podium. outside of first place so much this season that we just need to have a little bit of extra oomph, if you will, so to get us there. So I think practicing will help a lot, and I have actually no idea how Homestead drives on this new build. So from what I heard in the waiting room, I guess it's pretty bottom dominant. So if that is the case, then I feel pretty good there. That's kind of what I was strong at before, anyways. Obviously, I know that Lawson's really good there, and I'm sure Banks is too. And we have our work cut out for us heading into the finale. But it's moments like this that we live for. So looking forward to it.
Well, it's a great performance in this round of 8, and it gets you through unofficially, as we're still awaiting kind of official points, but just imagine that you, Zachary Hall, Brandon Banks, and Lawson Peel will be the 4 competing for the title next week at Homestead. Cedric, on a great finish tonight in P2 from Echo Park, anybody that you want to give a shout out to or thank for tonight's run?
Yeah, absolutely. Huge shout out to Zach for everything he's done for me this season, just working together, being a great teammate. Shout out to Brian Johnson last week for putting us in a point situation, or helping us and putting us in a point situation where we felt pretty comfortable heading into tonight. Shout out to you guys for doing a wonderful broadcast. As always, looking forward to going back and rewatching it. And shout out to everybody out there that's tuning in.
Well, Cedric, on behalf of all of us at the KBueno Racing Network, always great to talk to you. Congratulations on the P2 effort, but most importantly, welcome to the championship for at Homestead. Best of luck as you try to search for the title next Sunday.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Cedric Hunter for Category 5 Esports walks away with P2 in Stage 1 and has a solid race all around the block to capture what is going to be a pivotal spot come Homestead, Miami for the Championship 4. And now we're going to be joined by the final driver inside this top 3 with a different story. Stephen Harlow comes away 3rd in this final. What was attempt to finish this race under green? Wasn't necessarily overtime. It was a organic 2-to-go restart. But Stephen, tell us the emotions after this finish, a back and forth effort, and unofficially it appears that you may not advance to the Championship 4, but a strong performance regardless.
Championship runs will come and go, but that was fun racing regardless. That last restart, Ross was in my ear the whole time, like, we gotta hang back, we have to wait, we have the help. Even if the two of them get together in front of us, we're good. It's like, okay. And we tried to time it up, and I don't know if he thought I was closer or had a bigger run or not, but I got like 2 car lengths away from Cedric, and Ross pulled up. Kunkel went with him because he was going to help us, and just killed all of our run. Tried to get back to him down the backstretch, but it wasn't enough to finish it off.
And the way this race was going, especially in the first 2 stages, what I caught in the middle of the pack was the way you were trying to make a secondary line work, whether it was by yourself, whether it was with 1 or 2 more drivers. It seemed like while everybody was faithful to the bottom, you were more experimenting with the top. What did you seem to learn there with the different lines here at Echo Park Speedway, and just how much this super speedway racing has kind of changed in yearning for the track position, especially as this race progressed?
Yeah, at least earlier on when it was hotter, it was better to run the top just because the car wouldn't get as loose. I mean, you saw pretty early on, almost wrecked once or twice. Just got super loose, whether it was a weird aero spot or just running out of tires. I don't really know. I probably did. I was killing them the first stage. But yeah, then after that, it was like, if I ever saw an opportunity, but then, jumping below someone into turn 1 was just too good of an opportunity basically every time it happened. And I made up a lot of spots doing that rather than running the top and being different.
Well, you gave it your all. 3rd place finish, and even with the points gained, it seems like you're going to be a non-playoff driver come Homestead, Miami. But just give us an overall recap of what this season has been like for, the first time with this specific group of guys, at least under this Droppin the Hammah Cup Series banner, and what you're going to try to do at Homestead, Miami next Sunday to go at it for a win.
It's been an awesome season. I think this is probably my best season with these guys, whether it was with Sunoco or DTH this year. I've actually finished 2 super speedways now. I finished a super speedway a couple of weeks ago in trucks, So it's nice to put together clean races in places where, you kind of expect to leave on a wrecker. Yeah, overall, just consistent runs, but, being consistent can only get you so far. If you don't have a win, you won't have a shot.
Well, I knew after the end of the Sunoco Cup Series, and not that long ago, that you were going to be a big name to talk about come dropping the Hammah Cup Series action when it was announced, and glad that you made it this far. Unfortunately, not going to be a championship bid, but still a worthy enough valiant run in this playoff system. Steven, right before we let you bounce after Echo Park Speedway, anybody that you want to give a shout out to and thank for tonight's run and your postseason run as well?
Well, I got to thank you, of course, for putting on these awesome broadcasts. All the admin, Chris, Stempy, Kunkel, guys that really worked hard to put this together and are working hard to make sure this place stays alive and this league stays alive moving forward. Gotta say thank you to my teammates on DTH and TOW. They were doing everything for me. I got way off strategy at one point and was like, yeah, I got to pit with like 70 to go. And I'm barely going to make it on fuel after that. And Chris and Justin were both like, right away, hey, we're a lap down. How can we help? Let's come with you. And then we ended up having enough, catching a lucky caution and getting back into it. Gotta thank Warrior Soar, Team Watson Racing Setups, Project Hopner. Gotta thank Ross for making this beautiful car too. Big shout out to the Hopner family one more time. It's been a rough year, but they're trying to get some semblance of normalcy back together. My family watching at home, they're always there supporting me, and my girlfriend who's asleep in the other room.
Well, Steven, a fantastic season put together, and we were great to watch it on the KBueno Racing Network, and still one race to go at Homestead in Miami next Sunday. On behalf of all of us here, congratulations on the third place finish. Great to talk to you once again, and best of luck at Homestead. Hopefully it ends up with a race dub.
Thank you. I'll try my best. I'll see you at the next one.
Stephen Harlow comes up short of making the championship four, but it is regardless a third place effort here from the virtual Echo Park Speedway in Atlanta. So that leaves one. Homestead Miami Speedway, the final race of the inaugural Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series season, with 4 drivers unofficially confirmed to run for the title. Brandon Banks, who won in this roundabout at Kansas, Lawson Peel pointing his way through, and the 2 Category 5 esports drivers of Zachary Hall and Cedric Hunter. They will move on through. Stephen Harlow, Steven Stempian, Ross Harlow, and Warren Kyle Keith will be eliminated after tonight's race, and therefore will be non-playoff drivers come next week. So that will do it for us at the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series from Echo Park Speedway, and it is a 4th race victory for Steven Maggio. In unbelievable fashion, was able to capture the dub and enter Droppin' the Hammah victory lane once again, and for the first time as well on a super speedway. But just to give you a recap as to what is coming on the KBueno Racing Network, we've got, of course, that championship finale next Sunday for the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series. That'll start August 10th at around 8 p.m. Eastern. We'll have that pre-race championship coverage for you and bring you from green to checkered to decide an inaugural season champ. And right before that, August 7th, we'll go Green Flag Racing in Kentucky for the All-Star race of the SEC Cup Series. They'll go for a money prize and a lot of fun. That coverage will begin at 8:30 p.m. Eastern here on the KBueno Racing Network. And then the Monday following the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series finale, it is a brand new series from us. The KBRN Truck Series will kick off at the World Center of Racing at Daytona. Again, that is August 11th at around 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern. So a fantastic race put together here from our final super speedway affair, and it is the 3-time, now 4-time winner, Steven Maggio, crossing the start-finish line first. For Steven Stempian, Chris Progar, and the entire admin crew that makes things happen in the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series, and for all of the great folks involved in the KBueno Racing Network, for Charlie Beyer, Keelan Belsha, Eli Comerford, Francisco Bacallao, and for myself, Kenneth Bueno, gonna say so long from Atlanta, Georgia. Steven Maggio, the race winner. 4 drivers vying for the championship next Sunday. We'll see you there.